Arno Stark. So, there are two versions of Arno Stark. The main one was when he was Tony Stark's long-lost brother, but I'm going to talk about the other one. In this version, Arno was the son of Morgan Stark, who was Tony Stark's cousin on Earth 8410. In this reality, Arno is extremely smart and helps run Stark Industries. He ends up creating his own Iron Man suit and constantly uses it to help himself instead of others. He became a mercenary, killing lots of people, and he even used it to sabotage his business rivals, which is really sneaky. This dude would even kill just innocent people or anyone who didn't like what he was doing, and he would absolutely feel no remorse about it. Number 9, Andros Stark. Andros Stark is from the future and the grandson of, Tony Stark. Basically, in the future, Tony Stark was trying to create an AI, Vortex, that was supposed to help protect humanity, but instead it affected computers, took control of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the internet. It then determined that humans were evil, and it tried to wipe all of them out. Does that sound familiar? Like, wasn't Ultron created to help humanity too in the MCU? And why do AIs always turn evil? Anyways, he traveled back to the past and basically tries to kill Tony to stop the future from ever happening. Well, the future ends up changing, but not because he ends up killing Tony. But I mean, if he killed Tony, that would wipe himself out too, right? So you always gotta think about this time travel stuff. You gotta think it through. Number 8, Steel Corpse. In the Age of X comic series, Tony got infected with some sort of virus that causes himself to permanently fuse with his suit. Yeah, it's really crazy. Basically, never being able to take it off. To make matters worse, his suit could function without Tony's will, and it was causing Tony to slowly die, since it was taking him over. Yeah, it's kinda dark. And when the Avengers were on a mission, at one point, the suit allowed an emergency override that was going to allow it to kill mutant children. Nothing Tony would do would be able to stop it, so he told Captain America to save the children, and Captain America shot Tony in the back of the head. Yeah, that was a pretty dark ending. Number 7, the infamous Iron Man. So, Dr. Victor Von Doom becomes Iron Man. Yeah, it's real, and I'm not joking. So, the man who was once evil turned good, kind of, with some help of Mr. Fantastic to help redeem Doom's soul. He does in fact turn good. Stark and Doom become close, but after the Battle of Civil War II, with Captain Marvel defeating and severely injuring Iron Man, Doom decides to become the infamous Iron Man to try to right the wrongs of his past. I know he technically isn't like super evil while he's doing it, but come on, he's Dr. Doom, so you never really know. He's always planning something. Like, it's Dr. Doom. Number 6, the Stark, an alien race. When the Martian Masters invaded Earth for the second time, Tony didn't want his armor or technology to fall into the wrong hands. He feared if they got a hold of it, they would be way too powerful to handle. So he launched all of his technology into space. Unfortunately, a few years later, the very rocket holding all of Tony's technology landed on an alien planet. This alien race didn't know what to make of this rocket. They were quite primitive. They started experimenting with the technology and learning everything they could about what was in the rocket. They even named themselves and their planet the Stark. I mean, that's dedication. With this new technology and armor, they were able to harness and they were able to conquer other worlds. Number 5, Tony Stark from Earth 2122. Now, there isn't a whole lot known about this version of Iron Man, but from what we do know, he's pretty dark compared to the original. For instance, he kills innocent people. Yeah, okay, that is something the original Tony would not do. Yeah, he has killed people, but not innocent people. I mean, at least not intentionally. In this world, the British won the American Revolution and control North America. And in this world, Tony is a part of the group called the Sons of Liberty. Number 4, Zombie Iron Man. So in the comic series Marvel Zombies, Iron Man is, well, the zombie. He attacks Silver Surfer at one point, but then is sliced in half by one of Silver Surfer's energy blasts. Since he is a zombie, he's not dead. He ends up eating some of the Silver Surfer's body and gains some of his abilities. With just gaining these new powers, and with the arrival of Galactus, Iron Man and some others fly up and eat Galactus. Yep, they straight up eat him. They gain his powers and form a group, the Galacti. Number 3, Iron Patriot, the comic version. So, in the comics, the government wants Norman Osborn to basically recreate the Avengers team. Yeah, you heard that right. Friggin' Norman Osborn. So he creates the Dark Avengers, and leads it as the Iron Patriot. Basically a combination of Iron Man, but with Captain America's colors. Now, the MCU did a version of the Iron Patriot, but they did their own spin and made Rhodey the Iron Patriot, and he did work for the government. Eventually, the Dark Avengers declare war on Asgard. Asgard is currently just hovering over a spot of land on Earth. With the siege of Asgard underway, Norman wants to use Sentry's evil side, Void, as a secret weapon to take the Asgardians down. He manipulates Sentry to allow Void to take over his body, and in the end, Norman is imprisoned on the raft. But, you know, he never stays there for very long. Number 2, Iron Maniac. Iron Maniac is from an alternate universe, Earth 5012 to be exact. In this world, almost all of the other Avengers were killed by a Super Skrull. Also in this world, Tony became more and more crazy as time went on, with a lot of it happening because of the loss he experienced. In this world, he also ended up becoming obsessed with Reed Richards, who he believed was becoming too power hungry. Tony became more unhinged, even killing that world's Black Widow and Wolverine. But that's not all, folks. He then took on the Fantastic Four and killed Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, after Johnny permanently scarred Tony's face. Reed eventually found a way of stopping him by sending him to another Earth, the main Earth, Earth 616. Number 1, Ultron, MCU version. So in the MCU, Ultron is created by, you guys guessed it, Tony Stark. After the events of the first Avengers, Tony is still dealing with the trauma of that alien invasion. He wants to make sure that if there is ever another attack, the world will be prepared. So, Tony starts the Ultron program, using the Mind Stone from Loki's scepter. At first, they just look like variations of armor that Tony has worn in the past, but controlled with his AI, basically to protect Earth against any threats to it. But Ultron deems the human race as the greatest threat against Earth, so instead of protecting the humans, he's going to wipe them out. Yeah, that's kind of dark. He was doing this initially with assistance from Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, but Ultron's plan was coming together. His second form was made from vibranium. His plan was to lift up a city in Sokovia and allow it to come crashing down like a meteor to wipe out humanity. Obviously, the Avengers were able to stop him, and he was destroyed by Vision in the end. Alright.
Number 10, Symbiote Spider-Man. Obviously, we have to start off this list with a classic. Introduced in 1989's What If Volume 2 Number 4, we're given a glimpse into the life of Earth 1089's Peter Parker after his suit bonded with the Venom symbiote. In this reality, the symbiote couldn't be removed from Peter Parker, even though the Fantastic Four and other heroes tried using a combination of magic and science. It ended up taking over Peter's mind and body, feeding off his adrenaline, causing him to age at a very rapid rate. Once his body couldn't sustain the symbiote any longer, it used him to possess superheroes like Hulk and even caused the death of a few others. Free from the symbiote's control, it's then revealed that Peter Parker has now aged to 85 with not a whole lot of time left. He was later found dead by Mr. Fantastic, surrounded by research on how to kill the symbiote that he was once bonded to. Although it was out of his control, Symbiote Spider-Man was considered even worse than Venom, one of the most sadistic villains in the Marvel Universe, and unfortunately he never really got that redemption. Number 9, Peter Parker, Earth 9591. Now we're all familiar with the origin story of Peter Parker, Spider-Bite leads to powers, leads to the birth of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but have you ever wondered what it would look like if things took a bit of a different turn after that Spider-Bite? Well, wonder no longer, because in 1995's Ruin Number 2, we're actually introduced to a different Peter Parker who isn't so lucky. After being bitten by the radioactive spider, Peter develops a total of 0 powers and is instead infected with a mutant virus that ultimately leads to his death. This Earth never gets the chance to meet the hero Spider-Man, and instead they're given a rash and scar-covered Peter Parker who was forced to live the remainder of his life in quarantine so he wouldn't infect anyone else. I always wondered what would happen realistically after that spider bite, but man, I really didn't think it would be that dark. Number 8, Ghost Spider. Now, this is one of my favorite costumes in the Spider-Man PS4 game, so I had to add it to the list. On Earth 11,638, Peter's Uncle Ben wasn't ever murdered and actually helped him hone his skills as the Amazing Spider. Despite this, he doesn't always use his abilities and intellect for good, and thanks to the resources from his lab, Parker Technologies, the Amazing Spider found a way to bring over other Spider-Men from different universes and absorb their powers. After bringing Earth 616 Peter Parker into his universe, the Spider is convinced by him that what he's been doing isn't heroic at all. Then, when Ben is about to absorb Earth 616 Peter's powers, we see the Spider stand in the way and instead had his powers absorbed, putting his body into a comatose state and trapping his spirit in hell. Following the Sorcerer Supreme's fight with the Infernal Hulk, we see Peter given a second chance at life after he was infused with the spirits and powers of the Repentant Damned. Now possessing powers similar to Ghost Rider along with his Spidey powers, he awakes from his coma as the Ghost Spider and uses his second chance to correct some of the mistakes he's made already. Check him out in his first appearance in 2011's Amazing Spider-Man Annual Number 38. Number 7, Superior Spider-Man. Following an insane life that deserves a read if you're not familiar with it already, Otto Octavius transplanted his mind into the body of Peter Parker, leaving Peter in his body. Still retaining Peter's memories, he was able to trick all of Peter's loved ones into thinking nothing was wrong. Otto believed that he could be a better Spider-Man and, following the death of Peter Parker, took up the role as the Superior Spider-Man, upgrading the spider suit to better fit his needs. Many battles ensued, and then it's revealed along the way that Peter's consciousness still lived on inside his body, and after the Goblin King kidnapped Anna Maria, Otto's love interest while in Peter's body, Otto begins to hesitate to save others as he has a chance to save her and doubts he can save everyone without having time to plan. Peter's consciousness pushes him to save the child who is also in danger at the same time, and Otto realizes that Peter is more deserving of the role of Spider-Man and completely erases his consciousness so that Peter can take control of his body once more and save everyone. He sacrificed himself for the girl he loved and the man he hated for the greater good, and that just goes to show you that even if you start off as a villain, you can change and become a hero. Now, there's a lot more to the story that I had to gloss over or skip, so I highly recommend you check out the story for yourself, starting with The Amazing Spider-Man number 697. Number 6. Doppelganger. The evil, pretty much mindless duplicate of Spider-Man from Earth 616, this version of Spider-Man was created by Magis during the Infinity War. Although he was killed during the Infinity War, this 6-armed Spidey clone was later revived by the Demogoblin, becoming its pet for a while. Doppelganger appears a few more times after the aftermath of the Infinity War, teaming up with Carnage, Shriek, Carrion, and the Demogoblin during the infamous Maximum Carnage killing spree, and then is later seen as part of the Spider Army to help defeat Morlun and the other Inheritors. Unfortunately for him, after many adventures, the Doppelganger was eventually captured and imprisoned in the rebuilt Ravencroft. Possessing many of the same powers as the original Spider-Man, what really sets Doppelganger apart is his raw strength, being able to lift up to 25 tons as opposed to the normal 10 that most other Spider heroes can lift. Why not check him out for yourself in Infinity War number 1. Number 5. Pestilence. In 2005's Cable and Deadpool number 15, we see Deadpool dropped in Earth 5701 while on a search for Cable, where the supervillain Apocalypse has conquered New York and then changed 4 superheroes into his horsemen, one being the Spider-Man of this world. Alongside Famine, who's the Blob, Death, who is Archangel, and an alternate Cable known as War, they all serve under Apocalypse and aim to protect him at all costs. Now, known as Pestilence, this 4-armed and 4-legged version of Spider-Man is not one you want to get close to, especially when you learn about his poisonous fangs and his hunger for human bones. Check him out for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 4. The Other. In the 2005-2006 storyline of the same title, we see Spider-Man begin a transformation to his wild side. Peter began having these strange symptoms and dreams of Uncle Ben and spiders. Thinking he might be dying, Peter threw himself more and more into his crime fighting, especially against the scientific vampire known as Morlun, as Morlun wreaked havoc by beating Spider-Man so badly that he ended up in the hospital, and also by smacking Mary Jane around. Peter got to the point where he just couldn't take it anymore and reached his limits. In 2006 Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 3, we see Spider-Man pin Morlun down and kill him with a bite to the head. After what we all assume was Peter's death, we see Peter erupt from a cocoon with new powers and a newfound dedication to embracing his spider side that he refers to as the Other. Even though he embraced his dark side for a while, he does eventually come back to his senses and becomes the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man once more. Number 3. Patton Parnell. Definitely one of the scariest looking Spider-Men, Patton Parnell has been described as a sociopathic version of Spider-Man who made the exact opposite decisions that Peter had. Growing up with an abusive uncle, Uncle Ted, Parnell was always a bit of a weird one, as he found joy in experimenting on animals and perversely spying on his next door neighbor Sarah Jane. Like other Spider-Men, Patton was bit by a spider, however, his body's reaction to it was a little bit different. Instead of turning into a superhero, he actually gained the ability to turn into a spider-like monster and started to seek revenge on those who had treated him poorly, starting with his uncle. He eventually leads Sarah Jane to his house and reveals his new form to her, and needless to say, she was terrified and not at all impressed. And then after a bite to the neck, the next morning we see hundreds of baby spiders coming out of Sarah Jane's neck. Thankfully, Parnell doesn't stick around for too long, as just after 3 days of having his power, he is drained of all his life force by Morlun. Check out this twisted story in 2014's Edge of Spider-Verse number 4. Number 2. The Spider. Showcased in the Exile series, we're introduced to one of the darkest Spider-Men to date. On Earth 15, Peter Parker was a sociopathic mass murderer who was sentenced to 67 consecutive life sentences and merged with the Carnage symbiote before being recruited by the Timebreakers into the Weapon X team. Using none of his powers for good, the Spider joined the other members of the team to try to conquer the Earth instead of actually helping them, finding nothing but joy in killing and torturing. It took a blast from Firestar to end his reign of terror alongside the other rebels. What makes this version of Spider-Man so terrifying is that he's one of the few Spideys who actually keeps the symbiote his entire career. With the symbiote's powers combined with Peter's evil rage, this puts the Spider at the same power level as Carnage at his strongest point, making him a truly frightening foe. Why not check him out for yourself in 2002's Exiles number 12 so you can see just how truly merciless this killer is. Number 1. Zombie Spider-Man. Now, not a whole lot is known about Earth 2149 Peter Parker's life before the zombie apocalypse, but it's presumed that it was similar to his 616 counterpart. On his search for the Necronomicon, the presumed source of the zombie infection, Peter ends up getting bit by Colonel America, who is a zombie at the time, and becomes infected. With his mind still relatively human, he hurries home to try and get his Aunt May and Mary Jane to safety. However, with the virus spreading quickly through his body, he winds up killing and eating them both. Alongside the other superpowered zombies, they ate almost all life on Earth until they ate Galactus, which granted them all the powers of the Power Cosmic, which they used to travel the universe, eating other worlds in their endless search for more food. After 40 years of eating worlds, they finally returned to Earth, still hungry to find Reed Richards' dimensional portal so they could finally continue their quest. However, Spidey noticed that his hunger was completely gone. Regaining his sense of justice, Spidey alongside some other good zombies found themselves locked in a battle with the other zombie heroes, trying their very hardest to convince them that their hunger was also gone and they could become heroes once again. Now, there is a whole lot more to the story of Spider-Man, and I could honestly talk about it for hours. This entire zombie universe is amazing. So if you're interested in hearing the rest of the Spidey's redemption story, why not let me know in the comments below and maybe we'll dedicate an entire video to it. If you want to read the story for yourself, why not check it out in Ultimate Fantastic Four number 22 and Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness number 1. That'll be it for this video, guys. Do you have any other dark alternate versions of Spider-Man that you'd like us to cover? Let us know in the comments below and maybe we'll do a part 2 covering them.
Number 10, Old King Phoenix Thor. So some people say that this would probably be the most powerful version of Thor. And oh boy, it's probably true. Imagine Thor with his own powers, but also the power of the Phoenix Force. That's when you get Old King Phoenix Thor, who just also looks really, really cool. This Thor is a lot older and wiser, but ends up getting defeated by Wolverine, who was harnessing the power of the Phoenix Force. But then Wolverine ends up getting killed by Dr. Doom, and it is given to Thor. And I mean, the rest is history. Number 9, Rogue Thor. Okay, so this version of Thor comes from Marvel's What If series. Something a lot of fans will become a lot more familiar with because they're making a Disney Plus series about it, with MCU characters, which will actually be really cool. So, this one tells the story about what if Rogue, the X-Men, had the powers of Thor. In this story, Rogue ends up killing Thor by absorbing his powers and then kind of goes evil. I mean, she goes on a killing spree, killing a lot of people. It's not all bad though. She doesn't stay evil forever. I mean, the spirit of Thor eventually convinces her to use her powers for good, and she does. But come on, she went crazy, and it happened, but just not in the main continuity, of course, because that would just be really, really dark. Number 8, Frost Giant Thor. Okay, so Frost Giant Thor comes from Marvel's What If series, and during it, it presents the idea of what would have happened if Odin got killed by Laufey and raised Thor himself. Loki and Thor still are not really close in this version, but Loki's kind of the good guy. He wants to leave and go to Earth, but Thor doesn't want that and tries to stop him, and he accidentally ends up killing his mother, Frigga. Thor is devastated by what he's done and ends up letting Loki go, and Loki lives a nice life on Earth. I mean, it's pretty dark for Thor, but at least Loki got a happy ending this time. Number 7, Hellbound Thor. Hellbound Thor isn't from Marvel's main Earth. He comes from Earth 5113, or also known as the Dormammu-verse, which is named after, yes, Dormammu from Doctor Strange. In this universe, Dormammu is the ruler and has turned Thor, plus a lot of other famous Marvel heroes, into his minions, who will do anything for him. They all have new looks, and this version of Thor is very, very different. He's like really straight up scary. Yeah, he wasn't a big part of this story, so there's not a lot of information about him. But look-wise, he has his classic suit, but with a demon face, but he has all of his normal powers. Number 6, Thorion. Sometimes Marvel and DC cross over. It happens, and one time they did, some of their heroes merged together. This was the case with Thor and Orion, to form Thorion. He was super powerful, and get this, he is the son of Thanoside. That's Thanos and Darkseid merged together. Like, that's so cool, and is probably the scariest villain combo you could ever have. But this isn't technically canon, it's in its own universe, but it was pretty cool to see. It's always a treat whenever Marvel and DC decide to work together. Hopefully we see more of it in the future. Number 5, Revenger Thor. Yeah, it's called the Revengers because I'm getting revenge and you're getting revenge. Do you want revenge? Okay, so that quote was from Thor Ragnarok, but that version of the Revengers doesn't have any connections to Revenger Thor. But I just wanted to put that quote in there because, yeah, it was fun. Alrighty, so Revenger Thor comes from an alternate universe, Earth 10011, also known as the Cancerverse. In that universe, Thor is part of a team called the Revengers. And as you guessed, they are evil. They are basically the evil counterparts of the Avengers, which is kind of cool. They end up getting defeated by Thanos, which is also pretty crazy since they usually end up defeating him. But in this version, or this universe, Thanos is the hero, and he saves the day. Number 4, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill, a character that is very popular with fans and long overdue for a live action appearance. Beta Ray Bill is a character that is very popular with fans and long overdue for a live action appearance. If you are not familiar, Beta Ray Bill is an alien who was able to pick up Thor's hammer. No one was expecting it to happen, but it happened. He didn't keep it, obviously, but he did end up getting his own cool hammer. The whole thing started when Nick Fury sent Thor up to investigate a spaceship, and he ran into Beta Ray Bill, and the two of them were like, hey, fight. But during that fight, he picked up Thor's hammer. Now, he was teased in Thor Ragnarok, so maybe that means that the MCU is slowly leading up to an appearance? I mean, only time will tell, guys. Number 3, Zombie Thor. Need I say more? No. Number 2. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Zombie Thor comes from the Marvel Zombie series, which was written by Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman. It takes place on Earth 2149, and on that Earth, a zombie virus ends up infecting almost all the heroes and villains of the Marvel Universe. Thor is one of those heroes. So, he looked very cool and terrifying at the same time. But, one of the most interesting things about this version is that since he was technically dead, he was no longer worthy of Mjolnir. So, Zombie Thor didn't have it. He ended up getting his own hammer later on, but he didn't have Mjolnir, and that was something that I thought was very, very interesting. Number 2, Venom Thor. Yep, this one is real, like no joke. Venom Thor. Man, just the name is terrifying, because you know Venom Thor is a deadly combo. But, like Rogue Thor and all the other ones, this one happens during one of Marvel's What If stories. What if the alien costume had possessed Spider-Man? In this story, Venom takes over Spider-Man, but then continues to take him over, and then Hulk. But of course, he doesn't stop there. He's like, maybe I should take over some more heroes. And he decides to take over Thor. Venom takes over Thor and gets all of his powers. I mean, imagine if this happened in the main continuity. Venom would be virtually unstoppable because he retains all of the powers he takes. So he would have the powers of Spider-Man, Hulk, and Thor. Who would be able to stop him? No one. He would just rule the earth forever. Number 1, Unworthy Thor. This is one of the coolest versions of Thor, like ever. The reason he is so different is because this is Thor when he is unworthy of Mjolnir. He has short hair, a massive battle axe, ripped clothes, and one arm. His other arm was chopped off by Malekith and replaced with Black Uru. This look was part of the inspiration for Thor's look in the film Thor Ragnarok, which was freaking amazing. This story really breaks Thor down and shows who he is without the hammer. Honestly, it really works, and stories like this help characters grow. And Thor, or known as Son, learns a lot of valuable lessons during this arc, and becomes a better hero for it. I mean, he even fought Thanos during this comic, and it was pretty damn epic. Thor is just so cool. I can't wait to see where Marvel takes it.
Number 10, The Captain. From Earth 616, we meet a not-so-bright man with a fairly dark past, and when I say not bright, I truly mean it because this guy thinks if you hit a leprechaun in the head, it will turn into gold coins. Now, although we don't know his real name, we know that growing up, his mother was an alcoholic, and that is what led him down the path of bar hopping and bar fights. One night while on a long bender, 2 aliens cross paths with him, and for some reason they think he is worthy of some insane power, and bestow upon him the Messianic Sita Complex, which is the heart star of the space between galaxies. With his newfound powers and goal of turning Brooklyn into a better place, he is recruited by the Next Wave, the anti-terrorist superhero team. He apparently chose the name The Captain because all the other good names are taken, which is very fitting for his character. Sometime later, the Captain leaves Next Wave to live a quieter life, as it turns out he wasn't a huge fan of being a superhero, but when Nova crashes into Earth, he takes the mantle of the Captain once again to defeat the Mole Monster. Thanks to the Heart Star he obtained from those aliens, the Captain is seen with what is described as a generic set of special superhero abilities such as super strength, speed, stamina, durability, and flight. Now, since he doesn't possess many powers you normally associate with Captain Marvel, I put him at the bottom of the list, but don't worry, we have got some great characters coming up. Check out the Captain for yourself in his first appearance in 2006's Next Wave #1. Number 9, Anna Marie. Anna Marie from Earth 9289 is a bit of an interesting character, and honestly I love it. When Rogue touched Miss Marvel to absorb her powers, Carol Danvers got in the way by grabbing onto her arm. Carol's Kree DNA ended up glitching Rogue's powers, and thanks to the prolonged contact, they both absorbed the memories, personality, and abilities of the other. With all the powers of Carol Danvers such as super strength, flight, energy manipulation, and so much more, this made for one frightening mutant Kree hybrid. After getting a serious power boost during their fight in space with Brood, Anna becomes the hero known as Binary in this world. This Rogue and Carol Danvers combination were briefly visited by Carol's counterpart from the Prime Marvel Universe using the power of the Reality Stone, since the gem linked her to the wielders of the gem in other realities, with the wielder being Anna Marie in this case for this universe. So check out this hybrid mutant Kree for yourself in her first appearance in 2018's Infinity Countdown Captain Marvel #1. Number 8. Marvin Elwood. Hailing from the Marvel Mangaverse, we have Marvin Elwood, the son of Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel from Earth 2301. On his 13th birthday, Marvin was finally old enough to inherit his father's Negabands. However, that was no easy task because they were actually hidden in a volcano of all places, and when he finally got them, this completed his transformation into the newest Captain Marvel. When wearing the Negabands, Martin is given super strength and speed, interstellar flight, invulnerability, and so much more. Carrying on from where his father left off, Martin's first mission was to take down Galactus, and with the help of the Fantastic Four and the Inhumans, who he meets on the way, Marvin is able to take down all the villains that stand in his way, and he eventually succeeds in destroying Galactus' core and saves his world from destruction. However, sometime later, it's not really stated how long it's been, the Hand ends up resurfacing in his world and starts taking out the heroes of Earth 2301, and Marvin is unfortunately one of them. Making his first appearance in 2002's Marvel Mangaverse #1. Check out his story for yourself and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 7. Number 96. Before the Skrulls sent their other, more well-known spies, they created 97 Marvel sleeper agents, all considered to be failures except for, of course, number 97. Like the other 95 before her, number 96 was considered defective due to her several behavioral and genetic defects that had been accidentally given to her. Even though she is defective, number 96 still possesses these Skrull shape-shifting powers that allow her to transform into basically anything and take on their powers thanks to their unstable molecular structure. After the Skrull invasion on Earth, Mystique accidentally found the warehouse where all the defects were being stored and decided to bring 96 out of her coma so she could manipulate her into killing countless people. Mystique did this by disguising herself as Carol Danvers, which allowed the Marvel clone number 96 to immediately trust her. After a while, 96 came to the realization that she was being manipulated, and this made her go a little bit crazy, and she beat Mystique into a coma. Due to these unstable emotions, she began to overload with radioactive energy, which caused her to detonate like a huge atomic bomb. But thankfully, the real Carol Danvers was able to swoop in and absorb the blast, so there wasn't too much damage done. Check out number 96 for yourself in her first appearance in 2010's Miss Marvel Volume 2, number 48. Number 6. Monica Rambeau. From our familiar Earth 616, we have Monica Rambeau, the current Spectrum. However, before her time as the new hero, she was known as Captain Marvel. She was once a lieutenant in the New Orleans Harbor Patrol. However, fate came upon her one day when she gained superpowers after being bombarded by extra-dimensional energy that was produced by an energy disruptor weapon created by a criminal scientist. Now classified as an alpha-level threat, she uses her newfound energy form to create energy blast, alter her appearance, fly, and so much more. Given the name Captain Marvel by the media, she befriended many superpowered folks early on and actually served as an Avenger for a period of time, becoming its leader at one point. However, she was forced to step down from the group after many injuries. Out of respect for Genus Bell, who we will talk about a little bit later, who is the son of the original Captain Marvel, she changed her name to Photon so that he could take up the mantle and carry on his father's legacy. Fast forward a little bit past her time with the Mighty Avengers, we see Monica, now known as Spectrum, join the newly formed Ultimates. However, after the second superhuman civil war, the team was disbanded by the government because of the way they dealt with conflict. They did later reassemble though to investigate Eternity at the request of Galactus, and eventually the team was combined into Alpha Flight, and they're working to this day to keep people safe. If you want to know more about Monica's origin story, check her out in her first appearance in 1982's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. Number 5. Captain Mar-Vell. Hailing from Earth 1610, or better known as the Ultimate Marvel Universe, we have Jihanaris Halasun Mar-Vell, the Ultimate Captain Marvel. As a member of the Kree race, he underwent massive nanosurgery to appear human, going undercover as the physicist Dr. Philip Lawson to investigate the human race. Growing fond of humans, Vell joined S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ACES program to speed up humanity's progress to the stars. Thanks to his cyber surgery, Vell is able to change between his original form and human forms, and he can actually be changed out of this against his will into his original form if the cybernetics are tampered with in some way, but this issue can be resolved by itself with time, or he can resolve it. It just depends on how bad it is. Well, in his battlesuit, like the other Captain Marvels, Vell is capable of flight and can create energy shields when needed. Now, like many of the alternate Captain Marvels, he doesn't stick around for too long, as during the launch of a space mission in Cape Canaveral, Mar-Vell received information that part of the Galactus swarm had arrived on Earth. He fought the swarm in Bermuda and found himself allied with the Silver Surfer and Nova. When Galactus targeted the Kree homeworld Hala, Captain Mar-Vell fought the creature until he was grievously injured by the swarm. He died of his injuries on Hala and has not been revived or seen since. Check him out in his first appearance in 2005's Ultimate Secret number 1, and let me know what you think of the character in the comments below. Number 4. Noh-Varr, or Marvel Boy. A member of the Kree race in an alternate reality, Noh-Varr is the son of Captain Glory and Star Splendor. His DNA is actually interesting and adds a weird layer to his character because it was altered with cockroach genes to include some insect properties like wall crawling and super hearing thanks to a membrane that covers his skin. With the powers you would expect from the Kree race such as super strength, speed, agility, and durability, Varr was also injected with nanobots, allowing him to extend his fingernails and create bombs out of them. As a member of the 18th Kree Diplomatic Gestalt and the Young Avengers, we have seen Varr go up against some terrifying villains across the galaxy such as some major Skrull impersonators and Kang the Conqueror. In his most recent appearance, the Guardians of the Galaxy recruited Marvel Boy in order to stop the mad gods known as the Olympians. Together they decided their best hope was to use his pocket battlefield to destroy Olympus' engine. Nova and Phyla-Vell would distract Zeus while Moondragon would hide their presence to accomplish this. However, Artemis and Hermes discovered them, derailing their plans. When Hermes attacked Moondragon, Marvel Boy incapacitated the distracted god, and now we're kind of waiting to see what happens next. But in the meantime, why not familiarize yourself with Marvel Boy, starting with his first appearance in 2000's Marvel Boy Volume 2, Number 1. Number 3, Carol Danvers. Now hopefully we all know who this version of Captain Marvel is, as she has been around for a while now and has played a big role in a decent amount of storylines for Marvel. Born to Marie and Joe Danvers, Carol is a half Kree, half human, all-powerful woman who you do not want to mess with. As Captain Marvel, she possesses an incredible amount of powers, including but not limited to flight, super strength, energy manipulation, and even has some regenerative powers. Before becoming Captain Marvel, she was a part of the Air Force and intended to become a pilot. However, after she obtained her powers from Mar-Vell after the Psyche Magnetron fuses her DNA to his, awakening her latent Kree powers, she pretty much becomes a hero full-time, and well, the rest is history. As a member of the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Alpha Flight, and more, this Captain Marvel is a serious badass, and I would not recommend getting on her bad side. Now, I'm sure we all know where to find Carol Danvers, but just in case, check her out in her first appearance in 1968 Marvel Superheroes number 13, or if you'd rather see her on the big screen, check out Brie Larson in her portrayal of the character in the Captain Marvel movie, another one that I haven't seen yet. Number 2, Phyla-Vell. The daughter of Mar-Vell and brother to Genis-Vell, Phyla-Vell is an insanely powerful being. Having previously destroyed and recreated the universe, she was the second artificially created offspring of Captain Mar-Vell, was created by her mother Elysius in the new universe because her first attempt, Genis-Vell, had been so successful. Thanks to her Kree/eternal hybrid physiology, she possesses superhuman levels of strength, speed, and endurance, and on top of that, she has vast cosmic awareness and is able to manipulate the quantum zone force to do basically whatever she wants. Throughout her run in the Marvel Universe, she has been seen fighting in conflict with some ridiculously powerful beings such as Annihilus, and even her own brother Genis-Vell when he went insane and she tried to take over the mantle of Captain Marvel. Later on, we see her join Star-Lord's New Guardians of the Galaxy alongside Marvel Boy, Moondragon, and Rocket Raccoon, where she eventually agrees to become the new Avatar of Oblivion. Now known as Martyr, she was much more aggressive than ever before, and unfortunately, that led to a bunch of events that made up her death. In her final moments, she heads towards the cocoon expecting Magus to be inside. However, before her very eyes, a resurrected Thanos emerges from it, killing her and sending her off to hell. Now, if you're interested in this character, check her out in her first appearance in 2004's Captain Marvel Volume 5, number 16. And finally, number 1, we have Genis-Vell. After falling out with Captain America, Rick Jones found himself mentally drawn to a pair of extraterrestrial golden bracelets known as the Negabands. With those bands, his atoms joined together with that of the original Captain Mar-Vell, and they lived together in a shared existence. Captain Mar-Vell unfortunately perished from incurable systematic cancer, and as Rick slowly began to move on with his life, eventually getting married, Mar-Vell's love, Elysius, felt more alone than ever. Using Titanian science, Elysius sampled some of Mar-Vell's genetic structure to conceive a child, Genis. To protect him from Captain Marvel's enemies, Genis was artificially aged to maturity and taken to an isolated world where he could be safe from any harm. Now, upon discovering his true lineage, Genis donned the Negabands worn by his father and was determined to carry on his father's heroic traditions. With all the powers of his father before him, coupled with his vast cosmic awareness and ability to interact with his alternate selves, Genis is arguably the most powerful Captain Marvel to date. During his time with the Thunderbolts, Genis' powers seemed to rage out of control to the point where his Negabands were actually absorbed into his body, and he was continuously drawing more and more energy into himself, and he got to the point where he was so powerful that Zamo used the Moonstones to kill Genis by sending his body parts into separate parts of the Dark Force dimension so that they could never be rejoined. Now, obviously I did have to skip over a lot of cool stuff when it came to this character, so why not check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1993's Silver Surfer Annual number 6.
Number 10, 1602. The Matthew Murdock belonging to Neil Gaiman's 1602 alternate Earth of 311 is known as the Bard. He pretends to be a helpless blind singer when really he is a dangerous adventurer who takes on jobs in exchange for large sums of gold. This version of Matthew is from Ireland and got his powers as a young boy when he ventured into a dark cave and discovered a glowing green substance which he tasted to try to figure out what it was. Cause that's what you do when you notice weird glowing substances. The substance gave him a fever and robbed him of his sight, but granted him other enhanced superhuman senses. At one point he threatens to kill King James if he ever attempts to attack Spymaster Sir Nicholas Fury again. Number 9, Old Man Daredevil. In the Marvel 1602 comic, one of the alternate realities that we also get to see into is the one that Captain America came from when he was sent back in time to 1599 Earth 490. It was his being sent back that created Earth 311, the alternate reality that the 1602 comics belonged to. On Earth 490, Captain America stood up against the older dictator and president of the United States, Purple Man, who at the time was not just the president but also considered president for life. Other heroes tried to do so as well, but many of them were hunted down and captured, including an elderly Spider-Man and an elderly Daredevil. Both were presumed killed by President Kilgrave, while Captain America was sent back in time because Purple Man didn't even want a trace left of Cap. He wanted to avoid Captain America being made into a martyr, and to have him completely forgotten instead. Number 8, Dare the Terminator. Slade Murdoch is from the Amalgam Universe. She is the combination of Matt Murdock, Daredevil from Marvel, and Slade Wilson, Deathstroke from DC. She was a lawyer who struck out as a vigilante when she felt the system failed to uphold justice. Both her father and her mentor Winterstick took part in her training, and she took up the mantle Dare. Later, she was captured by the crime lord and New Gotham mayor, The Big Question, who experimented on her. It was during this time that she was blinded but gained superhuman senses. The Big Question called her a daredevil and gave her little devil-like horn implants to help her appearance match that nickname. Number 7, MCU Daredevil. The whole feel of the Netflix shows when it came to their depiction of heroes was way darker. In the Daredevil Netflix series, the show really tends to focus on the angle of Daredevil just being a normal dude. He's trained hard almost his entire life and he's a brilliant lawyer, but Matt Murdock is just a human trying to do his best to defend his own borough of New York. The only superhuman thing about him is his senses and how well he is able to see in his own way around him, despite being completely blind. In fact, his blindness is one of his strengths in the series, that and his insane willpower, which is shown through how many times Daredevil gets beaten down but always manages to get back up. Charlie Cox plays the role of Daredevil and Matt Murdock brilliantly in this darker, more gritty live-action reality. Number 6, Exiles. In the 2001 run of Exiles, we meet the Daredevil of Earth 181. We learn that this version of Matt Murdock for some reason works for Wilson Fisk as a hitman. After his adventures with the multiversal Weapon X team, Daredevil ends up being imprisoned in a crystal palace. After being freed though, he ends up back on his own Earth, where we get to see him gleefully return to working for the Kingpin, beating his target bloody in an alley. Wow, that's dark. Number 5, Undead Daredevil. This version of Daredevil comes to us from Earth 666. In this reality, everyone is undead. Here, Daredevil is part of the Undead Avengers, which is led by Brother Voodoo. He offers Captain Britain some blood of an innocent youth in the first few panels of his existence. Braddock, of course, politely refuses that offer. We don't know much about this version of Daredevil as he's only appeared in a few issues of 2010's Secret Avengers, but he looks and seems initially super dark. He himself actually seems to be some kind of demon or devil based on both his appearance and his behavior. Number 4, Daredevil 2099. There are actually two different versions of Daredevil 2099, one which shows up in 2099 AD Genesis. He is Eric Nelson and is believed to be related to Matthew's partner Foggy Nelson, but the other is related to someone far more sinister. In the Marvel Knights line Daredevil 2099 comic, Daredevil is actually Samuel Fisk, the grandson of Wilson Fisk, who wrestles with atoning with his family's criminal past while also being faced with inheriting that legacy as Kingpin. He uses the Daredevil persona to assuage his guilt over the source of the power that he wields as Kingpin. In this reality, Matt Murdock was also killed years ago by his nemesis, Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk. Number 3. Kingpin. In the reality of Earth 65, which is also home to Spider-Gwen, aka Ghost Spider, Matt Murdock, instead of becoming Daredevil, ends up as Wilson Fisk's right-hand man and eventually takes over his role as Kingpin when his boss gets arrested. In this reality, Stick is killed by the Hand and they end up taking in a young Matt Murdock to train in their ways, turning him into a deadly assassin. He still gets a law degree when he returns to the States, but instead of taking up arms against the criminal underworld, he ends up joining it, working for Fisk, climbing the ranks until he becomes his Kingpin's chief advisor. Matt Murdock in this reality is an enemy to Felicia Hardy and Ghost Spider. Number 2. Keeper Murdock. This version of Matthew Murdock is from Age of Apocalypse. Apocalypse took over Earth when Matt was just a child. He was put to work on Apocalypse Island and during his time there saved another human from a falling barrel of toxic waste. This toxic waste ended up granting him the superhuman senses we know him for, but Matt only suspected that the accident was responsible for blinding him, because this all happened around the time that he joined up to be part of the Upstart program, which gave him cybernetic enhancements. Ergo, he thought his abilities were granted to him by his enhancements, and by Mikhail Rasputin, one of Apocalypse's horsemen. As such, Murdock became Rasputin's loyal and obedient servant. After he experienced a fraction of the world's suffering through making physical contact with the mutant empath, Murdock would learn that his powers did not come from Rasputin, and that in fact, he had been manipulated for years into committing what were evil atrocities. Yeesh. Number 1. Dead Devil. Dead Devil only appeared briefly in a couple of issues. He is mentioned in Exciting X-Patrol and comes to us from the Amalgam Universe. Dead Devil is known as the Man Without Life and appears to be a combination of Marvel's Daredevil, Matthew Murdock, and DC's Deadman, Boston Brand. Both their names are good old comic book alliteration. We don't know much about Daredevil, but can safely assume he'd have the combined powers of both characters. He is also known as the Man Without Life. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who is your favorite Daredevil alternate? Which alternate do you think is the darkest? Number 10. Chief Magnus. In the Noiroverse, the reality of Earth 90214, Eric Magnus is one of the worst kind of villains, and he doesn't even have any powers here. Much like how Spider-Man has a noir version of that comic, so does the X-Men. In the comic series X-Men Noir, we meet Chief of the NYPD Detectives, Eric Magnus, a crooked cop who aims to protect his family through using his power to control the criminal world, creating his own underworld society known as the Brotherhood. He attempts to encourage Charles Xavier to partner with him. Xavier runs a school for wayward youth, and Magnus would see them given a place in the criminal world via the Brotherhood. When Charles refuses, Magnus has one of his students killed. Number 9. Grand Inquisitor Enrique. Obviously, we have to talk about the dark alternate reality that is Neil Gaiman's 1602. Here, Magneto is known as Enrique, who was a young Jewish boy in Venice who was separated from his family and baptized by a priest and raised by the Catholic Church, forbidden from ever returning to his family again. He would go on to become the Grand Inquisitor, responsible for searching out, hunting down, and eliminating the witch breed, which in 1602 speak is another word for mutant. Enrique was forced to burn alive witch breed with visible mutations at the stake, despite being one himself, and really wanting to not do that. Number 8. Earth X. On the alternate reality of Earth 9997, which comes to us from the Earth X series, Magneto ends up as Toad's slave after being originally proclaimed a hero. In this reality, Magneto defeats all the Sentinels and rules in the newly formed Sentinel City thereafter. He invites Toad to join him, but Toad secretly resents Magneto for all the years of mistreatment he has suffered while under his leadership. When the vibranium levels in the Earth change, however, Magneto finds his powers have altered. In fact, Toad seems to have inherited his powerful magnetic abilities somehow due to this change, and Magneto is left depowered. Toad then enslaves Magneto for a time, and Magneto is forced to become Toad's jester. Both funny and dark. It's funny dark. Dark humor. Number 7. The Chaos Engine Trilogy. The Chaos Engine Trilogy is an X-Men novel that is a collection of 3 stories which explore alternate realities where 3 iconic Marvel villains use the Cosmic Cube in order to manipulate the world, finalizing their plans for world domination and shaping the world in their own image. Magneto himself is one of those iconic villains and is featured in the second book. The X-Men must fight to stop Magneto from enacting a plan which would result in worldwide mass murder, allowing Magneto to finally assert his dominance over the humans who have long toiled to oppress mutant kind. Of course, this is the sort of thing Magneto is usually plotting as a villain, but this time around he has the power of the Cosmic Cube to back him up, making this version of him even more frightening. Number 6. Age of Apocalypse. While the alternate version of Magneto in AOA got a few nice moments in this reality, he also had some pretty dark ones. In AOA, Magneto leads the X-Men, as Charles Xavier is killed when he sacrifices himself to protect Eric. Magneto and his X-Men are forced to face Apocalypse, who rules as a powerful tyrant, eliminating the weak and experimenting on others to create the strongest version of mutant. Magneto loses both of his children, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, in battle in this reality, and also ends up locking himself up in prison after Apocalypse is defeated due to it being revealed that he withheld information from the rest of the X-Men and the new mutant branch of government. However, this is also the reality where he finds love with fellow mutant Rogue. The two of them even have a child together. In the end, however, both he and Rogue are brutally murdered by the AOA version of Logan, Weapon X, who later betrays the X-Men by becoming the new Apocalypse. Number 5. Big Town. During a Fantastic Four What If miniseries entitled Big Town, Magneto appears as one of the villains teamed up to take down enemy Reed Richards. The crazy thing about this story and this alternate Magneto of Earth 110 is that he doesn't attempt to take out Mr. Fantastic alone. He is joined by Hulk, Namor, Doctor Doom, Ultron, of course his own Brotherhood of Mutants, which this time around includes Storm and Wolverine, surprisingly, and Red Skull. Yep, Magneto has been established as a Holocaust survivor, which granted could not be true in this alternate reality, we don't fully know, but we can likely assume that he is, as it's not singled out as being a difference. Alternate reality stories tend to enjoy flaunting any differences, as that's, kind of what they're all about. So yeah, Magneto, a Jewish World War II survivor, a Holocaust survivor, and Red Skull, an established German World War II soldier, team up to take out Reed Richards in this story, which is admittedly pretty dark, because that's not a thing you'd think Magneto would do normally. Number 4. X-Sentinels. One of the stories in X-Men Millennial Visions tells us of how over time, as the X-Men and other mutants like Magneto aged, they slowly transitioned to become cyborgs, until they were just full-on robots, with their consciousness just downloaded into their cyber bodies. As time went on, their mental faculties began to break down due to the overload of information over time, basically causing their brains to kind of short circuit. All they could remember clearly was their mission to protect mutant kind. Clinging on to this last principle, the cyborg mutants become X-Sentinels, who instead of hunting down mutants, would hunt down and exterminate humans. So in a way, they became their own worst enemy. Number 3. X-Men films. What we know of Eric's past in the X-Men films is enough to convince you just how dark of a character and story he saw there. Eric was Jewish and living in Germany with his family during World War II. As a young boy, his powers started to manifest, but not strong or soon enough to save his family from being put into concentration camps. He was studied by a doctor who was allied with the Germans, a man we'd come to know as the famous Sebastian Shaw. And when Eric could not perform one of the tests that Shaw gave him, Shaw murdered his mother in front of him, hoping that the rage would help to unlock the full potential of Eric's powers. This is also the reality where much later on Eric would settle down and start a family. Eric was married and he and his wife had a daughter together, following his adventures in the film Days of Future Past. Unfortunately, after coworkers discovered that Eric is actually Magneto, witnessing his powers, he ends up being apprehended by the Polish authorities, who accidentally kill his family when his daughter's mutant powers begin to manifest. Yikes. Poor Magneto. Number 2. Days of Future Past, but the comic book version. Magneto from the alternate reality of Earth 811 has a pretty bleak life after the Sentinels take over the country. At first free from the mutant concentration camps, Magneto is aiming to find his daughter Scarlet Witch, who has gone missing. When Wolverine, Jubilee, and Magneto do find her, they discover she's being held prisoner and used as a weapon by the Hellfire Club. They free her, but she ends up dying anyways, and during the fight, the bones in Magneto's legs are completely shattered, leaving him unable to walk. When finally captured by the Sentinels and placed in a mutant concentration camp, which you think would be hard enough for the poor man, he ends up sacrificing his life to help the X-Men and Franklin Richards escape so they can hopefully follow through with their plan to alter reality and avoid this whole apocalyptic fate. Number 1. Ultimate Magneto. Magneto in the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610 is the most extreme and the most dark, like many other Ultimate versions. This is the reality where both Magneto and Xavier, when they first meet, decide that mutant kind is meant to replace humankind and form the Brotherhood. Here, a young Eric also kills his father when his powers first manifest, though in his defense, his father was trying to shoot him dead at the time. Eric instinctively causes the bullet to turn back around on his father, fatally wounding him with the reversed gunshot. This is also the reality where when some refused to join Magneto in his cause, he simply responded by killing them. During Ultimatum, his severe stance on how to best deal with the oppression of mutant kind caused him to kill millions of people, including his former friend Xavier. He snapped Xavier's neck and also killed other famous X-Men including Beast and Nightcrawler. Thank you so much for watching Nerd Squad.
Number 10. Bruce Banner, Earth 12,091. Now, not a whole lot is known about this alternate universe, but they do have a pretty crazy looking Hulk nonetheless. In this reality, Bruce Banner was mutated into the Hulk by undergoing some gamma radiation experimentation, so pretty standard so far, but his appearance is vastly different than the Hulk that we're familiar with. This Hulk is like an electric green color and is a bit more risque because he doesn't wear any clothes, which is okay I guess because he's got kind of, you know, Ken doll in it if you know what I mean. Not to mention that he has 4 absolutely massive arms, effectively making him twice as strong as any other Hulk. After this transformation, he gained the reputation for destroying spaceships, and any attempts to stop him by Thunderbolt Ross were always thwarted. He attacked the hideout of Barracuda when the Punisher tried to gain information about the 6-fingered hand, and he killed a decent amount of the mercenaries hired to kill the Punisher, but was enraged by the leader's sonic device. The Punisher managed to escape before the Hulk could kill him, which you can assume he could have done very easily. Check out this monstrous Hulk for yourself in his first appearance in 2012 Space Punisher number 2. Number 9. Skulk. Hailing from Earth 9602, the Amalgam Universe, Bruce Banner was a scientist experimenting with radiation, and one day an experiment he was working on went horribly wrong and fused him with the elemental entity known as Solomon Grundy, and he became known as the Skulk. With the powers of the Hulk and Solomon Grundy combined, you can probably figure out for yourself why this would be pretty scary. After a confrontation with Dr. Strange Fate showed Skulk that he could keep the Skulk in his human form with the use of magic. The Skulk agreed to work as an agent for Dr. Strange Fate in return for Strange Fate keeping Skulk in the form of Bruce Banner for most of the time. This version of the Hulk is actually a rather gentle soul because upon finding access, Bruce actually tried to have a conversation with him rather than immediately jumping into battle because he thought that Access seemed like a really lost and lonely child in the world. This didn't last for long though because it did get to the point where he transformed into the Skulk and attacked him with just plain old brute force. Skip ahead a little bit to a mysterious villain attacking the Amalgam Earth city by city, and Lobo the Duck awoke in the ruins of Manhattan and found himself as the last remaining survivor among the heroes. Now the Skulk's body was never actually found among the other heroes, but it can be assumed that he is no longer living. Check out this character for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1996's Doctor Strange Fate number 1. Number 8. The Incredible Thing. In an alternate reality, Earth 295 to be exact, Bruce Banner never actually became the Hulk and mutants rule the world. In an effort to combat them, Bruce, under the order of Thaddeus Ross, is tasked with creating an army of super soldiers. However, all of his efforts fail. Banner moves to Europe not too long after and becomes a member of the Human High Council, the ruling body of the surviving human population. Oddly enough, Banner longed to become a mutant in order to escape being a second-class citizen, and caving into the moral low ground, Banner sold himself to one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse in order to experiment on mutants and eventually himself. The result of the experiment was The Thing, a gray Hulk variant that Banner could revert between at will. Ben Grimm and Sue Storm were the first to encounter the Thing, and Sue shot him in the side of the head. The Thing fled and turned back into Banner, but neither Sue nor Ben connected the two events together. Fast forward a little bit to when Bruce alongside Tony Stark is escaping the Earth's orbit, and we see humanity under fire from a bunch of missiles. They were able to destroy all except for one, an adamantium bomb that Bruce had invented himself. So, as the Thing, he jumped out of the spacecraft and diverted the bomb so that no one would have to die from it. Forcibly reverting back to his human form, he fell down to Earth and was captured by Apocalypse. After an unidentified period of time, he revolts against the Alphas and Apocalypse, but sadly this ended in his death. Check out this Bruce Banner for yourself in 1995's X-Universe number 1. Number 7. Infernal Hulk. Are you familiar with Earth 11,638? It is an alternate universe that is seemingly a utopia because Spider-Man's loved ones are still alive, and Bruce Banner finally separated from the Hulk, and Wade Wilson never had to become Deadpool. However, he did end up becoming the villain Deathmask, but we'll just sort of, gloss over that one. After Bruce Banner became Dr. Banner, the Sorcerer Supreme of this universe, he separated himself from the Hulk and banished him to Hell, where he became the Infernal Hulk. When the Bruce Banner of Earth 616 traveled to this universe with Spider-Man and Deadpool, the Infernal Hulk was able to get free from Hell by trading places with the Hulk persona of Earth 616's Banner. He immediately went after Bruce, who was saved by Spider-Man and Deadpool. Together with his counterpart, Spider-Man and Deadpool, the Sorcerer Supreme Banner came up with a plan to defeat the Infernal Hulk once and for all by reversing the banishing spell and then snapping Bruce's neck before the Infernal Hulk could take control of his body. Check out this devilish Hulk for yourself in their first appearance in 2011's Deadpool Annual number 1. Number 6. John Eisenhart. On Earth 928, the alternate Earth that is set in 2099, and it is a vastly different world than we are familiar with because the Age of the Heroes has ended and much of the world is run by violent and evil companies. Head over to Los Angeles and we meet John Eisenhart, the Hulk of 2099. John gained his Hulk-like abilities from the Knights of Banner, a cult that worshipped the original Hulk, who wanted nothing more than to create a new Hulk. Their Gamma gun accidentally fired and hit John, and he was transformed into a 12-foot tall Gamma Beast with razor-sharp claws and fangs, a long tongue, and massive muscles. Hulk 2099 dedicated himself to defending the people from monsters like Draco and became a leader in a rebellion against them. After President Victor Von Doom's takeover of America, John stole a Gamma device from one of Doom's henchmen in order to keep it from Doom himself. Now this device was similar to the one that granted John the ability to transform into his Hulk-like form in the first place. Draco threatened John with a massive bomb placed directly on the city's fault line if he didn't turn the Gamma device over to him. In the ensuing battle, the bomb detonated and triggered a massive earthquake, and the earthquake set off the Gamma device that resulted in a massive explosion laying waste to the city. John emerged from the rubble, mutated even more so by the radiation emitted from the device. His mutation eventually did stabilize and he returned to his original form just prior to S.H.I.E.L.D. agents arriving in the region. While battling them, John seemed to perish and, well, that's the last that we've seen of him. Give his story a read for yourself in 1993's 2099 Unlimited number 1. Number 5. Bruce Banner, Earth 9591. In the Marvel Universe, scientific accidents tend to lead to fabulous powers. However, in the real world, a scientific accident typically leads to serious injury or even death. After all, if a regular person were caught in the explosion of a gamma bomb, they definitely wouldn't gain green skin and super strength. Odds are they would just get probably really sick and die. With that in mind, let's meet Bruce Banner from the miniseries Ruins. Written by Warren Ellis, Ruins is a dystopian twist on the Marvel Universe, where everything that can and does go wrong goes wrong. In this twist on the classic origin story, Rick Jones is a morphine addict that wandered into the testing site of a gamma bomb. The heroic Bruce Banner rushes to save him and is caught in the blast of the bomb, but instead of becoming the Jade Giant, Bruce Banner is consumed with a mess of green tumors which tear Banner apart from the inside out. Much like the Peter Parker of this universe, Banner is currently believed to be held captive by the CIA for research purposes. Give the storyline a read for yourself in 1995's Ruins number 1. It answers a lot of questions that I personally didn't know I wanted the answers to. Number 4. Hulk Earth 2081. After a war which ended in a violent nuclear holocaust that wiped out all life on Earth, wanting to get away from the few remaining survivors, would return to the Gamma Cave in New Mexico, where he'd seal himself off with a boulder. Many years later, Bruce would free himself from his imprisonment by a recorder, who was sent to record the demise of humanity at the request of a number of races. Though Bruce at first assumed they wanted to learn from humanity's mistakes, the recorder then informed him that they just wanted to make sure that they were all actually dead. Though Bruce at first refused to believe that everyone was dead, asking if it was some kind of joke, he soon came to accept it. He would then ask the recorder if he was going to kill him as well to, be sure. And the recorder then asked Bruce if he wanted to die, to which Bruce then responded, no, why would I want that? Bruce spent the next several years wandering across the ruins of the old cities trying to remember what he could of the old world. Later, Bruce suffered a painful heart attack, and how much his punishment resembles that of Prometheus, the last Titan, condemned to stay forever alive even while animals devoured him. As he died, the Hulk's persona arose in his mind. Banner would plead with the Hulk, begging him to simply let go of his conflicts, claiming that they were going to a paradise where all their dead friends were, where they could be happy. Hulk threw away his suggestion thinking it was a trick, and because in his eyes, friends had always betrayed him. With Banner completely gone, the Hulk was left completely alone in an empty world. Check out this one-shot storyline in 2002's Incredible Hulk, The End. Number 3. Zombie Hulk. That's right, it's Jack talking about the Zombieverse once again, my big favorite. In the world of Marvel Zombies, the Hulk is the hungriest one there is. After an unnamed hero driven by the hunger crashes on Earth and infects the Avengers with a zombie virus, the world spirals into a zombie apocalypse. Once valiant heroes resort to stomach-churning acts to fulfill their craving for human flesh, and the world becomes a battle for the strongest for scarce resources. A roaming band of zombies composed of, or I guess decomposed since they're zombies, of former heroes such as Spider-Man and Wolverine, kill and eat their way across the planet with a zombified Hulk serving as the Twisted Team's muscle. The group eventually crossed paths with the Silver Surfer, who was subsequently brutally killed by the Hulk and eaten by the group, imbuing the zombies with the cosmic power, allowing the former heroes to take to the stars to eat their way across the galaxy. 40 years later, Hulk returns to the Earth to find a colony of human survivors in New York, known as New Wakanda. After Giant Man declared a plan to create a breeding program to have food for eternity, Spider-Man and Luke Cage rebelled and fought Tony and the others. A force field was activated, protecting Black Panther's stronghold and the survivors, but sealed Gladiator and an unconscious Bruce Banner inside and cut Luke Cage in half. Hulk eventually escapes, and after eating Reynolds, Hulk transformed back into Bruce and voluntarily was eaten by the zombies so that he could cause no more damage to anyone. You all already know that this is one of my favorite universes, so check out Zombie Hulk for yourself, starting with his first appearance in Marvel Zombies Dead Days #1. Number 2, Maestro. While the Hulk has traditionally served as a tragic anti-hero, the supervillain known as the Maestro served as a reminder that the Hulk is really only one bad day away from becoming the most dangerous foe mankind has ever encountered. This alternate future version of the Hulk hails from a Earth ravaged by nuclear war. Driven mad by the death of his friends and from continued exposure to radiation, the Hulk christens himself the Maestro and appoints himself the ruler of this war-torn dystopia. Retaining the intelligence of Bruce Banner, but with the enhanced strength brought on from the radiation, the Maestro rules unopposed, splitting his time between torturing those who have crossed him and admiring his trophy room filled with the weapons and costumes of his fallen comrades. When the modern day Hulk is sent forward in time, he ends up clashing with his future self, eventually triumphing over the cocky Maestro. While the Maestro hails from a possible future, the Hulk lives in constant fear that one bad move could put him on the path to becoming this tyrannical ruler. Fast forward through some pretty cool events that you should definitely read for yourself, and we see the Maestro go up against Logan, who unsheathed his claws and just decapitates him. Give the story a read for yourself, starting with 2017's Old Man Logan, Volume 2, number 25. And number 1, Pappy Banner. This version makes me so uncomfortable, it's not even funny. So similar to his 616 counterpart, Bruce Banner of Earth 21,923 began as a hero, or, you know, as much of a hero that the Hulk can be. No one really knows how or why or when, but Bruce Banner had a very drastic shift in personality and became a villain, many believing it to be probably because of the prolonged exposure to radiation. When the villains took over in this alternate world, Banner joined in on the hero slaughter, eliminating Thor and so many others. Banner later took over a large portion of California and Nevada as his own and named it Hulkland. He also made the decision to mate with his first cousin She-Hulk and sired a group of inbred Hulks called the Hulk Gang. Through intimidation alone, they forced people living there to pay rent or face having their property taken and even death. One of the people that was extorted was Logan, who had become a pacifist at the time. Number 10, Captain Last. You'll learn pretty early on in this list today that the Captain America legacy isn't always carried on by the most deserving. Sometimes it's taken up by a terrible warlord, and that is exactly what happened in this case. On Earth 13,153, humanity makes its last stand in the only place strong enough to survive, Brooklyn. The former Spider-Man Miles Morales leads the last of civilization into the future against the evil that is still very prevalent in the world. Captain Last is the leader of the One America Army, a group of militant scrappers based in the tri-state area following the Earth's decimation by the germs. Basing himself off of Captain America, Last also gains his powers from a super soldier serum, though it's not really explained when or how, and he wears a costume that resembles Cap's signature look, shield and all. Last and his army attacked a caravan carrying supplies from Jersey City to Brooklyn, but were defeated by Spider-Man and his allies. Somehow they were able to find a way to merge Captain Last with a germ, allowing them to break through Brooklyn's defenses and evade the city. Captain Last sought out and battled Spider-Man, but Miles used his powers of bioelectricity to kill the Captain once and for all. Check out this monstrous Captain for yourself in his first and thankfully last appearance in 2020's Miles Morales The End number 1. Number 9, Captain Zealandia. A Captain America alternate hailing from Earth 616, Captain Zealandia is one of Arnim Zola's mutated clones of Captain America that was exposed to negatively charged gamma rays. Captain Zealandia possesses all the powers you associate with Captain America, such as superhuman strength, stamina, and agility, but they are all amped up a notch thanks to the gamma rays that they were exposed to. They also carry around a shield that resembles Captain America's, however it is a different color scheme, is made of an unknown material, and has sharpened edges that make it look kind of like a buzzsaw. This storyline takes place after Steve's return from Dimension 7, a world of mutates created by Zola where Steve had been trapped for 11 years. This storyline takes place after Steve's return from Dimension Z, a world of mutates created by Zola where Steve had been trapped for 11 years. Steve is awoken and tortured both mentally and physically by Captain Zealandia, so much so that Steve gets to a point where he's had enough and just impales Captain Zealandia with a shield. This didn't actually get rid of our Cap variant though, because he later resurfaces as the leader of the Unvengers, a team of mutated clones based on the Avengers including Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor. Check out this scary looking Cap clone for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2013's Captain America Volume 7 number 4. Number 8, Captain Mexica. From Earth 1519, a reality where the Aztecs had never been conquered, comes a Captain America variant that is pretty freaking scary looking. Not a whole lot is known about Captain Mexica's background, but it is assumed that it's similar to Earth 616's Captain America because they seemingly have the same powers and similar gear. At some point, Captain Mexico found their way to Earth 616 and they were immediately caught and put in stasis by the Alternate Reality Monitoring and Operational Response Agency, or ARMOR for short. After a zombie Morbius was found to be impersonating his mainstream counterpart, he began infecting ARMOR agents left and right, turning them all into zombies. In this process, Captain Mexico was freed from stasis, infected, and began feasting on ARMOR agents as an ever-hungry zombie. After having his fill, he attacked Machine Man, who cut him in half, seemingly killing him. However, it was not confirmed, since he's a zombie and hasn't really made an appearance since. Give this zombie captain story a read for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 2009's Marvel Zombies 3, number 4. Number 7. Steven Rogers, Earth 70,105. In the 5-issue limited series Bullet Points, we are shown an alternate reality where Dr. Erskine is killed the day before implementing the Captain America program. Still very sick and with no other option, Steve volunteered himself for another top-secret government project known as Project Iron Man, and I think you know what that means. Steve's body is bonded to a giant suit of armor that resembles the Mark I Iron Man suit, and with this suit he is able to fight for America in World War II. Thanks to this new outer shell, he is able to simulate the powers and abilities that his 616 counterpart gained from the Super Soldier Serum. However, I feel this was a huge sacrifice because his skin was literally grafted to the suit. Years later, he was finally freed from the suit, but that did not last very long because he was forced back into it in order to fight Peter Parker, the Hulk of this universe. Bruce Banner is actually the Spider-Man in this universe. It's a really interesting and smart switch that the writers did, and I really liked it a lot. But anyways, sadly in this fight with Peter, Steve dies because of the sheer strength that the Hulk possesses. Highly recommend you give the storyline a read for yourself, starting with 2007's Bullet Points number 1. Number 6. Baron Blood. You're probably familiar with John Falsworth, the Baron Blood of Earth 616. The young adult who got turned into a vampire by Dracula himself and then had his body mutated and altered by German scientists? Good, I'm glad you know who he is because that is not at all who I'm going to be talking about. I am actually talking about Earth 8101's Baron Blood that hails from the Marvel Apes universe. Don't worry though, this Baron still possesses all of the powers and abilities of his 616 counterpart, and he is also said to be at the peak of gorilla physicality. Revealed to be the one who is responsible for the vampire invaders, he ambushed Captain America, took his form, froze him in an iceberg. Continuing to turn other inhabitants of this universe into zombies, he became the leader of the Ape Vengers, which, funnily enough, contained a lot of reformed supervillains. He secretly plotted to enter Earth 616 for further food, and to accomplish this, he killed his world's version of Mr. Fantastic to gain access to tech that would allow him to hop between worlds. During the final battle between the Ape Vengers and the Outcast, Baron Blood wounded Speedball, which forced Gibbon and Fiona to take Speedball with them to Earth 616. However, Baron Blood didn't end up making it too far because he was later killed by Ape X. Check out the Ape Vengers and the Marvel Apes universe for yourself by checking out 2008's Marvel Apes number 1. Number 5. US Agent. A huge shakeup for Cap came up in a bold 1987 storyline. When a government commission declared that Steve had to do their bidding to continue as Captain America, Steve was obviously resistant because, who says his ideals are necessarily going to line up with theirs? He decided to just quit the whole role altogether, and the commission turned to John Walker to become the new Cap. However, he was much more brutal and short-tempered than our lovable Steve Rogers. Thanks to his power broker enhancements, Walker possesses basically all the same abilities that Steve has, not to mention he is a military-trained fighter and also trained under the Taskmaster at one point to hone his gymnastic and acrobatic skills. A real breaking point for this character is when a group known as the Watchdogs took out his parents, causing Walker to experience extreme levels of grief and to go on a bloody rampage. These bad actions led him to being deemed unworthy of the Captain America name, and he soon after faked his own death and came back as the US Agent. As the US Agent, we have seen Walker as a member of the Dark Avengers, Omega Flight, Jury, and even the Watchdogs as an undercover agent. There is so much more when it comes to this character, so go check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance as the Super Patriot in 1986's Captain America number 323, or just feel free to skip ahead to his time as the US Agent, starting with 1989's Captain America number 354. Number 4. Captain Hydra. You're probably thinking that I'm going to be talking about the time where it was revealed that Captain America was actually an agent for Hydra and the entire fandom just lost their mind when they saw the infamous Hail Hydra panel. Now, I thought it would be way too easy to include that dark version of Captain America and challenged myself to look for some other variants, but don't worry, if we do a part 2, I will definitely include him in that list. Enough with that tangent though, let's get back on track with Leopold Zola of Earth 85,826. Possessing the exact same powers and abilities of his 616 counterpart, aka Nomad, this version of Zola differs from him because he is a spoiled and arrogant brat who does literally whatever he wants. The captain led Hydra's team of Avengers to capture Nomad and Captain America's daughter Ellie in order to end the remnants of the rebel movement which was resisting Hydra's rule in the domain of the Hydra Empire. He pulled no punches when doing this, killing anyone who got in his way, and even broke Nomad's spine during a one-on-one fight between the two. Check out Leopold Zola for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2015's Hail Hydra #1. Number 3, Anti-Cap. With a name like Anti-Cap, you know this guy is going to be pretty dark. Not a whole lot is known about Anti-Cap, but according to his files, we know that he was enlisted in the Navy after the Oklahoma City bombing. He almost became a SEAL, but didn't pass the psychological test, and as a US Marine, he killed one of the biggest drug dealers around. But that's about it. At some point during his time in the Navy, he agreed to undergo an experiment that would basically make him the Navy's version of Captain America through something called the AVX patch. It worked and gave him similar abilities to Captain America, but only worsened his mental state, leading him to murder an admiral that was overseeing the project. He went AWOL after that, and Captain America and the Falcon were tasked with finding him before he could cause any more damage. After a long search, Captain America found Anti-Cap, and the two battled it out for a while, with Steve coming out on top. Defeated both physically and mentally, Anti-Cap chose to take his own life into his own hands, and dropped in front of a moving subway train, ending his own life. Why not check this character out for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 2004's Captain America and the Falcon #1. Number 2, Colonel America, aka Zombie Cap. Now I know you're all expecting this one to pop up on this list at some point. Like most of the other heroes from Earth 2149, very little is known about Colonel America's life before the zombie plague, but it can be safely assumed that it is similar to his 616 counterpart, with the only difference being an obvious rank change and the fact that Colonel America served as the President of the United States for almost a full term. During a battle with Sentry, Colonel America was infected with the zombie virus, and he is actually the one responsible for turning Spider-Man after he launched himself into the air and biting him. With an insatiable hunger, Colonel and the rest of the Avengers go on a hunger-fueled rampage. Skip ahead a little bit and we see Rogers alongside other zombies gain cosmic powers after devouring the Silver Surfer, but even the cosmic powers he gained couldn't prevent his death because during a fight with the Red Skull, he just straight up gets his brain scooped out. Fast forward another 40 years and we find out that the Colonel's brain is still very much alive thanks to the zombie virus, and it ends up being transplanted into Black Panther's dead son T'Challa. However, this turned out to be a terrible idea because Colonel America turned into a battle-crazed zombie that couldn't think of anything other than fighting and killing. His final fate was never actually confirmed, but it can be assumed that he died in one of the later battles that ensued between the zombies and the humans. Now, the Zombieverse is probably my favorite Marvel universe out there, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it too, so check out Colonel America in his first appearance in 2007's Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness #1, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 1, Steve Rogers, Earth 11,326. Still the leader of the Avengers, even in this universe, this Steve Rogers is not the nice guy that we would expect, or at least he doesn't start out that way. With all of the powers and abilities of his 616 counterpart, Captain America of Earth 11,326 was recruited as a part of a team to hunt and kill all mutants. During a mission to the mutant stronghold Fortress X, he succumbed to a deep and primal bloodlust and just killed Mystique because he thought that she was a threat, only to find out she was actually protecting a group of mutant children from the dangers of the world. With her dying breath, she completely changes Cap's outlook on life by questioning if what he was doing was actually right and how he could have let himself go this far. Realizing his mistake, Cap called off the mission and took everything into his own hands, killing the Steel Corps in order to protect the mutant children from any more horrors. Alongside the other members of the Avengers, Cap fought to protect Fortress X but was killed by the Hulk. He redeemed himself in the eyes of the mutants enough to inspire them to continue the fight in his honor though. Now I put this Captain America at the top of this list today because it shows just how truly merciless a Captain America who has lost his values and humanity can be. Check him out for yourself in the Age of X storyline starting with 2011's Age of X Universe #1. That'll be it for this video everyone. Number 10, Dark Claw. One of the coolest looking hero matchups to come out of the Amalgam universe in my opinion. The hero known as Darkclaw is a combination of Batman and Wolverine named Logan Wayne. Like our familiar Batman, Wayne witnessed his parents' murder at a young age and then was sent off to live with his uncle in Alberta. However, that did not last very long because his uncle was murdered as well and Wayne was sent to live in a home run by nuns. Once old enough, he enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force alongside a man named Creed H. Quinn, and the two of them were submitted to the Weapon X program, aka the Canadian Super Soldier program. It was there that the Wolverine half of this character came claimed to be, as it was here he learned of his Metamutant powers and had his bones fused with adamantium. Quinn, however, was not so lucky because through the course of the experiments he grew more and more insane and would eventually become the Hyena, a combination of Sabretooth and the Joker and Darkklaw's greatest enemy. Equipped with the powers of Wolverine and the vast knowledge of Batman, Darkklaw is a truly awesome character, so check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1996's Marvel vs. DC number 3. Number 9. Thomas Wayne. Turns out crime fighting is a genetic thing when it comes to the Wayne family. In the Flashpoint timeline, Bruce is actually the one who's murdered by the robber Joe Chill instead of his parents Thomas and Martha. Now as a result, for reasons similar to his son, Thomas Wayne took up a personal vendetta against crime that led him to taking up the mantle of Batman. But unlike his son, he is much more ruthless in his actions, as he is happy to kill any criminal that gets in his way. Equipped with the same genius intellect and hand-to-hand combat skills you would expect from any Batman, this version of the Caped Crusader has also been seen with multiple firearms, and also an Amazonian sword. Thomas secretly funds his war on crime through his business, Wayne Casinos, and thanks to this he's able to fight some of the most notorious villains Gotham's ever seen. One being his own wife, Martha Wayne, the Joker of this timeline. So if you're not familiar with the Flashpoint timeline, I highly recommend you take a look at some of the storylines it follows. So check out this grittier version of Batman for yourself in his first appearance in Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1, so you can fully understand why he considers himself to be a man with too much blood on his hands to be considered good. Number 8. Grim Knight. This version of Batman is from the Dark Multiverse and serves under the Batman Who Laughs as basically a gun for hire, acting as his second in command. In his timeline, Bruce's origin story is pretty much the same as his Prime Earth counterpart, however, he kills Joe Chill right after the murder of his parents when Chill drops his gun and gives him the opening. For the next several years, Bruce traveled the world honing his skills as an assassin and eventually returns to Gotham City to strike fear into the criminals' hearts as this universe's Batman. He has done some truly terrible things, such as making Jim Gordon watch as he made 2 highly explosive blimps crash into both Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Penitentiary, or when he tortured Mayor Harvey Dent with radiation until he was allowed to put up surveillance cameras all over Gotham. Sure, all that made Gotham a much safer place, but there was definitely a better method to it. With a full arsenal of weapons hid around the city of Gotham and on his person, the Grim Knight is truly merciless and not someone you want to mess with. First appearing in 2019's The Batman Who Laughs Volume 2, number 1, Grim Knight truly shows how dark a Batman who kills can be. Number 7. Damian Wayne. Now let's jump to a possible future here for a second and take a look at a version of Damian Wayne who took up the mantle of Batman in Bethlehem. In this possible future, Bruce Wayne retired as Batman and Dick Grayson took up the mantle. However, he was killed by some explosive Jokerfish and Damian stepped up to the plate as Batman. Unlike his father and Dick Grayson, Damian's Batman in this future is more willing to injure and kill opponents if he judges it necessary to do so, and this is pretty easy for him to do because he has always been pretty violent and definitely has the know-how to take down anyone and anything. Now, it's heavily implied that in this possible future, Damian made a literal deal with the devil, exchanging his soul for immortality and the healing abilities he felt he needed to protect Gotham. And he felt this had to be done because he couldn't measure up to his predecessors, being his father and Dick Grayson. Using the city of Gotham as a weapon itself by setting traps throughout it, we've seen this Batman go up against the likes of Two-Face in order to save a young Terry McGinnis, who he eventually takes under his Batwing, training him to become the next Batman. Why not check out this possible future for yourself in 2007's Batman number 666. Number 6. Batman 1 Million. In the far-off 853rd century, criminals and crime fighters are still very prevalent, and the most dangerous criminals are actually imprisoned on the planet Pluto and overseen by this new Batman. Their secret identity is not known, but we do know that he was one of the children that Zaron forced to watch their parents' murder, and from that day on, he swore to never let such a tragedy happen again. They chose the symbol of the bat because he thought it stood for something more than just fear, stating it stood for justice and as an ideal. He studied for years on end, honing his fighting skills and knowledge in as many physical and mental techniques as possible, and all of that eventually paid off because he was eventually offered a position on the new incarnation of the Justice League alongside Superman and Flash 1 Million. After years of working together, they all went back in time to invite the Justice League of the 20th century to see the rebirth of the first Superman, Superman Prime. Much to their surprise, their companion Starman betrayed them and unleashed a plague onto Earth, and with the real Justice League being unable to stop them, Justice Legion Alpha stepped in to help them. Batman 1 Million worked with the 20th century Batman to find a way to stop Starman's plan, along with Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, using the technology of the Batcave, and together, they were able to stop his plan, ending with Starman returning to the light once more to stop what he had done. Give this storyline a read for yourself, starting with 1998's JLA number 23. Number 5. Owlman. Thomas Wayne Jr. from the Antimatter universe is the son of Thomas and Martha and older brother to Bruce. After his family's murder, he decided to take up the mantle of Owlman. However, unlike Batman, Thomas wanted to conquer the villains he went up with rather than just fight them. Thanks to his father's wealth that he was left as inheritance, Thomas underwent years of training and general enhancement so he could enact his plans of conquering Gotham's crime world. Alongside the other members of the Crime Syndicate, a group who is basically the evil version of the Justice League, they managed to establish and maintain control over a large portion of their Earth, even though they were up against other powerful organizations such as the Young Offenders and the Crime Lodge. Eventually, the Crime Syndicate began kidnapping people from the 52 multiverse matter-based worlds, and were visited by our Justice League to retrieve the people from the Justice League Earth. Thomas, along with Superwoman and Ultraman, were banished to a prison subdimension while Johnny Quick and the current Power Ring were captured. Highly recommend you check out the storyline for yourself, so check out Owlman in his first appearance in 2000's JLA Earth 2. Number 4. Azrael. John Paul Valley, the genetically augmented assassin slash vigilante for the group known as the Order of St. Dumas. Now, I said genetically augmented because Valley was a test tube baby and his genetic structure was altered by scientists with an animal DNA which allows him to do the insane feats a normal human could only dream of. Originally an ally and even apprentice of Batman, Azrael was the one to adopt the Batman moniker following the Dark Knight's crippling defeat at the hands of Bane. However, he went insane for a short while during his run as the Caped Crusader and decided to augment the Batsuit so it was capable of causing some serious damage. It was very apparent early on that Azrael's Batman was of a very different breed because he was much more ruthless, okay with killing, and pretty much just wanted to punish the criminals rather than save any lives. Although he was doing a great job of cleaning Gotham City of its criminals, Bruce felt his methods were much too violent and irresponsible and personally removed him from the mantle after his full recovery, causing Valley to return to his identity as Azrael. Valley was presumably killed in a battle against his two greatest foes, Beast and Scratch, as he was shot through his armor by a multitude of Teflon bullets, and only his costume was recovered. 5 years later, another Azrael was created by the Order in ex-police officer Michael Lane. Check out John Paul Valley as both Azrael and Batman, starting with 1992's Batman Sword of Azrael, number 1. Number 3. Murder Machine. With an identical upbringing as the Batman we all know and love, Earth-44's Bruce Wayne ended up with one more tragic death in his life, the murder of his butler, Alfred. Blaming himself for Alfred's death, Bruce enlisted the help of Cyborg to create the Alfred Protocol, a powerful AI and hologram with the intent of keeping Bruce safe at all times. Within one day, the Alfred Protocol had executed all of the criminals in Arkham Asylum as he deemed them a threat to Bruce. Eventually, Bruce started to doubt his ability to keep himself safe and relied very heavily on the AI Albert, having him remove his ability to feel fear and sadness and replace his body with a mechanical one that would never ever fail him. This was the birth of the Murder Machine and thus began the Earth's demise. Like the other members of the Dark Knights, Murder Machine represents one of Batman's many fears and aspects of his life. This one in particular represents his fear of not being as self-sufficient as he thinks, his father-son relationship with Alfred, and the regret of cutting off other people. Check them out in their first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, the casting, number 1. Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Obviously, this twisted Batman had to make an appearance on this list today. However, he is not at number 1 because there are definitely some darker Batman out there. Hailing from the dark multiverse, we have Earth-22's Bruce Wayne, also known as the Batman Who Laughs. After an all-out assault from Joker against Gotham, Bruce completely loses it and snaps the Joker's neck, which causes a mysterious gas to leak from the Joker's mouth into Bruce's body. This led to the mad descent of Bruce's sanity and his transformation into the Joker-Batman hybrid known as the Batman Who Laughs. With the abilities of the Joker and Batman combined, alongside the Jokerized Robins known as Groblins or Dark Robins, the Batman Who Laughs assembled the darkest and most twisted versions of Batman across the Dark Multiverse and created the Dark Knights in order to wreak havoc on the world. In the events of Dark Knight Death Metal, he is seemingly killed by Wonder Woman's new Chainsaw of Truth, but I highly doubt this is the last we will ever see of him. So check him out for yourself in his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting, number 1. And finally, at number 1, we have Batman Earth 43. Now, not a whole lot is known about this Batman's life prior to his introduction, but it can be assumed that it was similar to the Batman origin we're all familiar with. You know, parents' death leads to training, leads to becoming Batman and fighting the likes of the Joker, the Riddler, etc. After discovering that the most famous vampire, Dracula, is still alive and operating in Gotham City, Bruce realizes that his recent dreams were the result of him being visited by Tanya, another vampire who was once under Dracula's control. Tanya had actually been biting Bruce but hadn't been taking any of his blood. She was instead infusing him with vampiric powers without destroying his humanity. Thanks to these new powers, Batman now possessed some incredibly enhanced senses, super strength, and more alongside his immense knowledge of hand-to-hand combat. With enough power to now kill Dracula, Batman confronts and kills him by impaling the vampire on a tree. However, this win came at a serious cost because Dracula was able to completely drain Batman of all his blood, effectively completing his transformation into a vampire. Fast forward a little bit and we see our vampiric Batman put into a coma thanks to a stake to the heart after his bloodlust and rage causes him to drain the Joker of all his blood. Alfred eventually awoke his master later on because Gotham City was overrun with criminals. However, this was a pretty bad idea because all he did was hunt down his enemies, both new and old, so he could just drain them of all their blood and kill them. He is eventually killed after he walks into the sunlight, hoping he can finally pay for what he did and have some peace, but he is revived once more later on in the search for Ray Palmer, Red Rain.
Number 10. Harley Sin. Harley Sin was one of the applicants to join Harley's gang of Harleys. Her name is Constance Brand. While she didn't end up becoming one of Harley's Harleys, she did still remain in Harley Quinn comics, and for a time was one of her villains. She's less of an exact alternate and more of an obsessed fan with a grudge. Eventually, she and Harley made peace, but recently she has reappeared in the Black Label comic Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, where she was seen taking over Harley Quinn's place as the Joker's wannabe paramour. Here she was tasked with proving herself to the Joker by gruesomely killing a bunch of civilians who Joker felt had wronged him, including his mailman and an ice cream man who didn't happen to have Joker's favorite flavor in stock. It seems that she might once again be plotting to take down Harley Quinn, but this time at Joker's side. Number 9. Bizarro Harley. This version of Harley was a miserable version. She was created using Harley's genetic material and LexCorp's Bizarro creating device, or machine. Bizarro had originally wanted a Bizarro version of Lois Lane to be his perfect bride, but instead was willing to settle for his own version of Harley Quinn. Unfortunately, this version, being the opposite of Quinn, ended up being a huge stick in the mud and the exact opposite of fun. Unlike Harley, Bizarro Harley was a very serious and responsible person. Her speak was also a little weird for a Bizarro character, as well as not everything she said was fully reversed. In the end, Harley defeated her Bizarro self by putting her out of her misery and telling Bizarro Harley she was not lovable, trying to get her to prove she was by saying she was having a good time. This resulted in Bizarro Harley exploding because, it's hard for Bizarros to say things like good and nice. But hey, at least she went out with a bang. Number 8. Injustice. While in the end Injustice ends up being a story of redemption for Harley Quinn as we see her become a full-fledged hero, we have to remember where this whole thing starts and why it is that Harley is working towards redemption in the first place. At the beginning of the story, Harley is still Mr. J's partner in crime, meaning she is also responsible for Lois Lane's brutal death at the beginning of this story, and Jimmy's, as well as all of the chaos that ensues afterwards. For all we know, Harley could have even helped Joker create this notorious plot. Also, poor Jimmy. I feel like because of all the crazy stuff that follows in Injustice, everyone forgets about his brutal death. Shot in the head, right through his camera. R.I.P. Injustice Jimmy Olsen. I'm sorry that you died. Always feel bad for him. We all forget about it. Not me, not today. Number 7. Steven Sijek's Harleen. Sijek's Black Label Limited series Harleen is one of the darkest alternates we've seen of Harley yet, as it allows us to dive deep into Harley's psychology in a way we don't usually get to in comics. In this version of Harley Quinn's origin story, a traumatic encounter with the Joker scars the young psychiatrist for life, forever changing her. She later is given funding for a project which could help in the early detection of sociopathic behavior, granting her access to Arkham Asylum and Black Penitentiary, allowing her to study criminals who were held there. She runs into the Joker and decides to face her fears of him by becoming his therapist. He proved to be the perfect patient, causing Dr. Quinzel to become obsessed and extremely protective of the Joker. Over time, also finding she was falling in love with him, losing her sanity as she became more and more infatuated with her patient. Number 6. Arkham Games. In the Arkham video games, Harley became a psychiatrist while training under Dr. Hugo Strange, which is pretty creepy to think about. Unlike most depictions of her as a psychiatrist, she did not this time around seem to have the best of intentions when it came to her patients, but more just a twisted and messed up fascination with the criminal mind. Here it was her ineptitude as a psychiatrist that allowed her to be manipulated by the Joker, not realizing that she was out of her league in treating him, and that he was using her. Dr. Quinzel quickly became obsessed with the Joker, falling madly in love with him, and willing to do anything that he asked of her, becoming his faithful servant who he often mistreated, and seeing Batman as the real villain of the story. Number 5. Haley Fitzpatrick. In Thrill Killer, Harley is instead Haley Fitzpatrick, a young teenage schoolgirl who is the paramour and partner in crime of the Joker. still in this rendition. Though in this universe, her version of the Joker, Bianca Steeplechase, dies. A lot of people die actually in this alternate story, but not Haley. She is one of the few who survives. She ends up being put in therapy following the death of the Joker, as Bruce Wayne hopes she can be saved and redeemed. In the end, Haley is reported missing and has stopped attending her therapy sessions. Bruce notes that he should go looking for her first thing in the morning, as her family is worried sick. His commentary comes at us over top the images of Haley's parents and brother all shot dead, before cutting to an exterior of their family home up in flames, where we can see Haley dressed once again as Harley Quinn. She is holding a gun and dashing away from the burning home with a smile on her face, implying that in this universe, Harley as a teenage girl kills her own family in cold blood. Woo. Number 4. Neo Joker. In the series Batman White Knight, there are two Harleys. One is the real Harleen Quinzel, and one is an imposter, a fake, if you will. The fake version of Harley apparently took over for the real Harley Quinn years ago, when the Joker killed Jason Todd. That's when the real Harleen left and Marianne Drews stepped in. The Joker was so preoccupied with his schemes that he never even noticed. When he found himself cured of his psychotic nature and returned to try and make amends to Harley, Marianne was the first version he ran into. Marianne herself was of course also crazy and hated that Jack Napier, formerly known as the Joker, had apologized and promised to make amends for how he had mistreated Harley in the past. This version of Harley, Drew's version, would go on to become the Neo Joker, while Jack himself attempted to become a hero. Number 3. White Knight Harley Quinn. The other Harley Quinn from this alternate universe has a much brighter story. She is reunited with the love of her life, and now both of them are able to finally be together in a healthier setting, with him being cured. She agreed to help Jack Napier, and the two are married, both promising one another to be better to each other this time around. If you never thought you'd ship these two together, the Joker and Harley Quinn, this is the story that will likely surprise you in how much you actually love their relationship as it is written here. However, this fairy tale ending does not last for Harley. Jack Napier eventually gives into the darkness and becomes the Joker once more. Harley is left alone, pregnant with his twins, which she eventually gives birth to, and attempts to raise on her own. In a new series, we'll see a continuation of her story, and this time around it's likely to be more dark. In Batman White Knight Presents Harley Quinn, a new serial killer is out on the rise who seems to be connected to the Joker. The GTO and FBI turn to Harley for help with the case. To protect her children and her city, Harley agrees to help, but in order to do so, will be forced to face her dark past, while juggling motherhood and facing her romantic feelings for Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, who is currently behind bars. Will this alternate be able to look madness in the face once more and survive? We'll have to wait till October to find out. I'm really excited about the series. Hopefully it ends up happening. Please. Please let it happen. Number 2. Azzarello's Harley Quinn. This version of Harley I think is one of the darkest because she also happens to be one of the most quiet. We never get to read her words or hear her voice in the Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo 2008 graphic novel The Joker. Here Harley Quinn is painted as the Joker's solace, his girlfriend and partner in crime. She is mainly seen having intimate moments with the Joker and ruthlessly killing people alongside him. She takes joy in the trail of chaos, bloodshed, and violence that she and the Joker leave behind her though. The closest we get to seeing her speak is seeing her maniacal laughter. Number 1. Harlequin. In the DC animated film Justice League Gods and Monsters, Harley Quinn is known simply as Harlequin, and is a serial killer who murders people, chops them up, and uses their parts to make her own version of the perfect family. Batman eventually tracks her down and she fights him with a chainsaw. In the end, however, she becomes injured by the chainsaw herself and attempts to surrender. However, this version of Batman himself is a monster. This version of Batman is the vampire and former scientist Kirk Langstrom. Instead of allowing Harley Quinn to surrender, he sinks his fangs into her neck, drinking her blood.
Number 10. Red Sun Superman. Answer me this, have you ever wondered what would happen if Superman didn't have that good and wholesome upbringing and was raised somewhere else, like I don't know, let's say the Soviet Union? Well, wonder no longer, because that is exactly what happens in the comic book miniseries Superman Red Sun. Instead of his ship crash landing in Kansas, Superman lands in the Ukraine in the middle of the Cold War. In the story, Superman is raised with the ideals that the Soviet Union instills in him, and the world feels a sense of fear as a superpowered alien is the Soviets' new secret weapon. He still has all the powers you associate with Superman, Superman because he is still exposed to the yellow sun. With the passion and sense of justice we've come to expect from Superman, Soviet Superman was so dedicated to his country, which made him incredibly dangerous for the wrong reasons, because he was a living weapon that the Soviets used to spread their power throughout the globe. Over the course of about 20 years, he traveled the world with Wonder Woman, converting other nations and even becoming their new leader. He was a good leader, don't get me wrong, because he is still Superman, it was just for a very bad world. Highly recommend you check out this alternate Superman for yourself, starting with 2003's Superman Red Sun Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9. Ultraman. Similar to our Superman's origin story, this iteration was sent from the planet Krypton to Earth 3. However, it's not really stated why, since Krypton didn't explode in this universe. On his way to Earth 3, he first came into contact with kryptonite, which started the change in his body that turned him into the super-powered powerhouse that we know. And since then, every time he came in contact with kryptonite, he only grew stronger. After becoming an adult, he renamed himself Ultraman, and this is where he vastly differs from our Superman because he became a brutal authoritarian and ruthlessly rules his version of the Justice League called the Crime Syndicate, conquering most of the world with their help. After largely conquering most of the world, Ultraman developed a new type of supervision that allowed him to see into the Earth 1 dimension. Seeking an open battle to test their powers after defeating the military forces of their native Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate challenged the combined forces of the Earth 1 Justice League of America and Earth 2 Justice Society of America. Not able to withstand the combined might of two Earth's greatest super beings, the Crime Syndicate was defeated and imprisoned in an extra-dimensional bubble created by the Earth 1 Green Lantern. Ultraman is a perfect example of someone who has all the power but isn't happy. Hailing from an Earth where evil always wins, Ultraman is always looking for something new to conquer, torment, or honestly both. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1964's Justice League of America number 29. Number 8. Overman. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where the Germans won World War II, we have Overman, the leader of the new Reichman and the Superman of this Earth. Kal-El was sent to Earth 10 as a baby in a ship away from the planet Krypton because it was dying. Pretty standard Superman origin, however, much like the Red Sun Superman, he was raised by the wrong people. Alongside the German forces, Overman conquered the world in, I want to say, less than 20 years, after which he decided to leave the Earth for a while. 3 years later, he returned with a clear head and saw all the damage he helped cause and became an advocate against all of what he once stood for, while still working alongside them for some reason. Eventually, German scientists used Kal-Cells to create a clone of him known as Overgirl that Overman learned to love like family. However, she died not too long after her creation, and that hit him hard. Inconsolable and grief-stricken, Overman leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of the new Reichman and Metropolis. Check out probably one of the saddest Superman stories I've ever heard of, starting with 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook number 1. Number 7. The Eradicator. Existing on New Earth, the Eradicator was an ancient Kryptonian weapon merged with a human body to form the last son of Krypton, an extreme vigilante who surfaced after the death of Superman. The Eradicator was given to Superman while on Warworld, and it began its work again on Earth, creating the Fortress of Solitude and trying to manipulate Superman into becoming the ideal Kryptonian. When it failed, the Eradicator created a new body for itself based on Superman. The Eradicator had all of Superman's memories, even though it wasn't actually the real Superman, but was far more brutal and violent. It didn't actually have the power to absorb solar radiation, so it relied on Superman's body to transfer energy to it. Over the years, it became more compassionate and even fought alongside Superman in a few fights, the most notable being their fight against Cyborg Superman, and even sacrificed itself to save Earth, but it always remained dedicated to preserving Superman and Kryptonian life. In DC's Rebirth continuity, the Eradicator has returned and it's just as dangerous as ever, so why not take a look at the Superman clone story for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1989's Action Comics Annual number 2 all the way to 2011's Action Comics number 901. Number 6. Black Zero. This is actually the third Black Zero. This was an alternate version of Superboy known as Superman 2 from a hyper time stream in which Superman had not returned to life and his clone had been left to fully mature and develop his full Kryptonian powers in addition to some tactile telekinesis. With this new power, he could create a field around himself that made him invulnerable, allowed him to fly, and also move heavy objects, similar to Superman's strength. Superman 2 tried to fight crime, but ended up losing a battle that cost its life, leading to a backlash against human cloning. He decided to rename himself after the pro-cloning organization on Krypton, Black Zero, and fight for clone rights. He used Project Cadmus to kill off most of the world's superheroes and recreated most of them as clones of the originals, but that wasn't enough for him. He entered Hypertime, a cross between a time stream and the multiverse during an era where DC Comics only consisted of one universe, to travel to other realities to fight for clone rights as well. Black Zero was a fanatical and ruthless warrior who was eventually and thankfully stopped by the combined strength of numerous Superboys from across Hypertime. Appearing across only a few issues, this is a short story that is definitely worth a read, so if you feel like it, check out 1999 Superboy Volume 4 number 61 to 64. Number 5. Super Doom. After a trip to Tibet, Clark, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen built a machine that used vibrations to bring thoughts into reality, and the best possible use for it in their eyes was to create a Superman that was a thought-powered redeemer capable of saving the world. Unfortunately, they ended up having to sell the machine to Overcorp, and Overcorp took their Superman idea and twisted it so much that the brutal and toxic Super Doom was born. A self-described killer franchise, Super Doom wasted no time in becoming the preeminent superhuman of its world, and sought out to eliminate any form of competition, meaning he was on the hunt for other Supermen. After ravaging countless parallel planets and butchering numerous Superman and Superman-like adjacent people, it finally tracked down its creators to Earth-23, where it killed Jimmy and mortally wounded Clark. Later, Super Doom was summoned to Prime Earth by an unwilling Lex Luthor as a final doomsday weapon against Superman, and after a brutal struggle, Superman overcame the monster, which, upon defeat, transformed into a bomb that Superman managed to place on the dark side of the moon before detonation, seemingly annihilating Super Doom once and for all. Give the story a read for yourself, starting with 2012's Action Comics Volume 2, number 9. Number 4. Superman Earth 1198. In Superman the Dark Side, the baby Kal-El ship is diverted on its path to Earth and instead lands on the planet Apokolips, home of the Overlord Darkseid. In this version of Superman, Darkseid is the one to raise him, and Superman becomes his loyal and devoted disciple and helps him in the destruction of New Genesis. As well as this, Superman doesn't grow up to wear tights and a cape. Instead, he opts for a menacing black and red armor with a lightning bolt S across his chest. Not only is this Superman powerful, evil, and terrifying, he also has a thing for weapons, using the Apocalyptian sword and Omega Warhead, as well as anything he can get his hands on. Superman in this story is more of a pawn for Darkseid than inherently evil, but much like the others, his actions have horrific consequences. With his direct and indirect help, Darkseid managed to extract the anti-life equation from Superman's cells and subjugated the world and expanded his reach. With Earth by his side and a yellow sun to power him up, Superman was forced to fight Darkseid to end his reign of terror. Highly recommend you check out this 3-issue run for yourself, starting with 1998 Superman Darkseid number 1. Number 3. Cyborg Superman. Now, there have been two major characters that have become Cyborg Superman. The first and most famous is the astronaut Hank Henshaw. When a solar flare hit Henshaw's spacecraft during a space experiment, he and his crew started to mutate. The mutation was so strong that once back on Earth, Henshaw's crew, along with his wife, all committed suicide. Before Henshaw's body disintegrates from the solar flare, he is able to upload his mind using NASA equipment. With the help of the birthing matrix that was used to send Superman to Earth, Henshaw creates a cyborg body with all the powers that Superman has. After this, Henshaw finds out that Superman had thrown the Eradicator into the sun, which caused the original solar flare. Blaming Superman for everything, the newly formed Cyborg Superman seeks revenge on the Man of Steel. To destroy the real Superman's reputation, Cyborg Superman tried to use a nuclear bomb to destroy Metropolis. He was defeated because that's what happens when you go up against Superman, but used his powers to inhabit machines to return over and over and over again, once even conquering most of the planet Apokolips. After his ultimate defeat, he was taken in by Sinestro during the Sinestro Corps War, making him even more powerful than ever. Since the New 52 era, Cyborg Superman has been revamped as having been the father of Supergirl, Zor-El, who survived Krypton's destruction only to have been transformed into the villain he is today. Why not give Hank's story a read for yourself, starting with 1990's Adventures of Superman number 466. Number 2. Lord Superman. This alternate Superman doesn't have any roots with comics. He is actually from the Justice League TV series, specifically 2003's episode A Better World, and is one of the first Dark Superman that we've seen in the animated universe. This Superman lost his way in battle with President Lex Luthor after Luthor executed the Flash in front of him, and mocked the Man of Steel for never being able to see things through to their logical conclusion. Superman, overcome with rage, executed Luthor with his heat vision, took over the world with his Justice League's help, and formed the Justice Lord's crime-free regiment. They saw themselves as the world's saviors, and the Terror was a small price to pay to realize their vision. Of course, when they found an alternate Earth, they immediately imagined all the quote-unquote good they could have done there, and Lord Superman's incredible powers would have let him succeed on this new Earth if it weren't for the regular Superman, who managed to defeat the Justice Lord before it was too late. I think the worst thing about Justice Lord Superman is that he truly thought he was doing the right thing, but we all know for a fact that he wasn't. Check out this 2-part episode for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. And finally, number 1, Injustice Superman. Before I dive more into this one, I have to say that I love the Injustice games so much. I remember when I first got the game and I did not put it down until I was finished with the story, so comment below who your go-to character is. In Injustice 1, I'd have to say mine is either Nightwing or Batman, but in Injustice 2, it has to be Green Arrow or Scarecrow. Anyways, sorry about that, let's talk about Injustice Superman. In a storyline amalgamated from diverse comic plots along with the Justice League animated 2-parter, A Better World, that I just talked about, the Joker sadistically fear gasses Superman into killing Lois Lane. Superman responds by putting his open hand straight through the clown's chest and turns the world into a dictatorship-like police state. In the process, he doxes Batman, murders Shazam and Martian Manhunter, converts the Justice League into his personal secret police, and gets his butt kicked by Alfred Pennyworth. He's finally defeated by a still good Superman from another universe who encases him in a red sunlight generating capsule. Now, there have been a few storylines over the years that have revolved around the idea of what would happen if Superman went bad and whether anyone could stop him, and this just proves that the only man who can take down Superman is Superman himself. Why not play the games again for yourself to refresh your memory, or check out 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us #1. Number 10, Speed Demon. Coming to us from the Amalgam Universe, a parallel universe that is composed of mashups of some of our favorite Marvel and DC characters that was unfortunately destroyed thanks to the cross-multiveral conflict, comes Blaze Allen, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Once a stunt rider working at a carnival, Blaze Allen becomes the Speed Demon following the death of his wife at the hands of the evil Night Spectre. He was convinced by Merlin to bond with the demon known as Etrigan, and from there, the entity known as Speed Demon was born. Granted the abilities of Ghost Rider, including his fiery powers as well as super strength, Speed Demon is not actually all that fast despite his name and lineage. While the character is a formidable fighter and an all-around powerful being, he falls very short in the speed department, especially compared to all the other speedsters. There have been other characters who have taken up this mantle, including both Jay Garrick and Wallace West, however all of their abilities seem to be similar to the originals. Check out Blaze Allen for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1996's Speed Demon #1. Number 9, Deceased Flash. Now a member of the anti-living, Barry Allen, formerly known as the hero The Flash, is exactly what you think he is, a zombified speedster. When the anti-life equation begins spreading worldwide, Barry went into hiding alongside Kid Flash, until they were found by Superman and Green Lantern. Leaving Wally in their more than capable hands, the Flash sped off to the Daily Planet where he encountered an infected Giganta. Thankfully though, she was taken down with a blast to the head from Cyborg. Soon after, we see the Fortress of Solitude turned into a shelter for the uninfected heroes. However, an infected Martian Manhunter was able to make it through, and not only did he kill Lex Luthor by just ripping him in half, he infected the Flash with a scratch to the back as well. Barry immediately ran out of the fortress because he didn't want to hurt or infect anyone else, and it didn't take long for him to become fully infected, and he started attacking the remaining survivors all across the world. He was finally stopped by Superman after the two collided into each other at full force, killing the speedster right then and there, but not before he was able to infect the Man of Steel. Give this storyline a read for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased #1. Number 8, Barry Allen Out of Time. Hailing from a possible future, this iteration of the Flash is a much darker Barry Allen from 20 years in the future. This future Flash first appears in the Flash Annual Volume 4 #3 as a broken man. Reeling from the death of a close friend and fellow speedster Wally West, Future Flash travels backwards through time on a crusade to murder all the former enemies he deems responsible for West's death, hoping to somehow change the future. His actions only widen a tear in the Speed Force, however, and the once hero ultimately decides to use a present-day Barry Allen's energy to seal the rift, proving his superiority in a one-on-one battle against himself. Because apparently the Flash is like a fine wine and only betters with age, the pair are soon interrupted by the arrival of Wally West. Able to take on both speedsters at once, Future Flash's actions caused the one thing he began his quest to stop: the death of Wally West. Give the storyline a read for yourself, starting with the Flash Annual Volume 4 #3, and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 7, The Rival. Real name Edward Clare, the Rival is the arch enemy of the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, and is one of the oldest speedsters around. Clarence was a professor at the university Jay Garrick went to and believed that he had the know-how and means to recreate the speed formula that gave Jay Garrick his powers in the first place. He was able to develop a drug derivative of the same formula called Velocity 9, and after taking it himself he gained the powers a speedster would have. However, he found out that they were only temporary. He became the criminal that he is because his findings were rejected by his fellow science peers, and decided then to don a darker version of Jay Garrick's costume and commit crimes under the name The Rival. After losing to the Flash the first time, the Rival resurfaced a couple months later, and during his battle with the Flash, he was somehow able to reach light speed and just vanished and was stuck traveling through the Speed Force until he was pulled out by Johnny Sorrow. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1949's Flash Comics #104. Number 6, Dark Flash. Walter West is essentially an identical version of Wally West, just from another timeline, with their two histories mirroring each other's up until one certain point. Walter's version of Linda Park, the girlfriend/wife of Wally, is killed during a battle with Cobra. Turning him into a very bitter speedster and eventually the Dark Flash, Walter develops an authoritarian zero-tolerance policy for criminals, going so far as to cruelly maim them if they denied his actions and got in his way. Eventually, Walter learned that the love of his life was still alive and well in another timeline, and he set out to defeat Wally West and completely replace him. Able to easily take on his alternate timeline counterpart, Wally, who is often considered the fastest character to take up the Flash mantle, which further extends the parallel between the two. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1999's Chain Lightning finale, Finish Line. Number 5. Johnny Quick. A member of the Crime Syndicate of America, an evil version of the Justice League hailing from Earth 3, Jonathan Allen is Johnny Quick, the Flash of this universe. After conquering the entirety of Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate of America decided to abandon their Earth to terrorize and take over Earth 1 and 2. It took the combined efforts of the Justice League and the Justice Society of America to stop them, although unfortunately for everyone that wasn't the end of their reign of terror. Now Johnny was initially depicted as being slower than the Flash, however he figured out a way to make up for his shortcomings by developing a helmet that vastly increased his top speed while also deepening his relationship with the Speed Force, making Johnny Quick more than a match for the Flash. Since then, Johnny has shown tremendous command over the Speed Force, defeating countless superheroes in a matter of microseconds in the Forever Evil storyline. It was only after Alexander Luthor, aka Mazza, stole his power that he met his end. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or feel free to skip ahead to his newer iteration starting with 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 4. The Red Death. Once the hero of Gotham, Bruce Wayne from Earth -52 was forced to seek more extreme approaches to prevent crime after losing all of his Robins. Coming to the conclusion that he wasn't quite fast enough to fight crime, Bruce set his eyes on the Flash, deeming himself more worthy of the Speed Force than Barry Allen, which is pretty presumptuous, but okay, whatever floats your boat. After defeating Barry, Bruce strapped him to the front of the Batmobile and drove them both into the Speed Force using the power of the Batmobile combined with the Cosmic Treadmill. The two merged together and Batman became the Red Death, using his new powers to kill instead of just stopping crime, much to Barry's dismay as his consciousness was still very much alive in Bruce's head. Like all of the Dark Knights of the multiverse, the Red Death represents one of Batman's fears, this one being losing members of the Bat family and his love for them and regret for those he failed. His dialogue and his Speed Force infection also imply he might represent Batman's fear of old age slowing him down as well. Check him out in his first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, the casting, number 1. Number 3, Reverse Flash. No, we're not talking about Eobard Thawne, we're going to be looking at the second Reverse Flash, Daniel West. Daniel ran away from home at an early age because of his abusive and drunk father, and by the time he was 18, he had fallen into the wrong crowd and was a small-time thug. All he wanted more than anything was to mend his relationship with his sister Iris, but after his first attempt, he was thwarted by the Flash and sent to jail for 5 years. When he got out, he wanted nothing more than to kill his abusive father because he felt that was the only way he could make amends with his sister, and gained his Speed Force powers that allowed him to travel back in time after a monorail crashed, and from then on he called himself the Reverse Flash and killed anyone who had a connection to the Speed Force so that he could drain their power. It got to the point where the only two left with a connection to the Speed Force were the Flash and Iris West, and Daniel was able to go back in time to attempt to kill his father. However, it didn't really work out, because his younger self and Iris caught him in the act. He then realized the error of his ways and turned his powers over to the Flash, who set everything right once again. Check out this Reverse Flash for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2012's The Flash, Volume 4, number 0. Number 2, Black Flash. They say death eventually catches us all, but what happens when you're too fast even for death itself? Well, that's where the Black Flash comes in. Easily one of the most mysterious entities in the DC universe, Black Flash is a symbol of death for speedsters across the multiverse, appearing just before the death of every significant speedster. Able to easily keep pace with the fastest beings in existence, it seems death really is impossible to outrun, even for speedsters. The Black Flash first made an appearance when Wally West seemingly cheated death by using his speedster powers to escape the inevitable. When the Black Flash realized he needed a human host to properly function, he chose Linda Park as his host. After Flash Rebirth brought back Barry Allen from the dead, he also noticed that the Speed Force was changing him, and it was revealed that the Reverse Flash's actions had mutilated the Speed Force and was turning Barry Allen, its avatar, into the Black Flash itself. The entity that could turn any speedster to dust just by touching him. The current host of the Black Flash mantle is Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. Check out this Horseman of Death for yourself, starting with 1998's The Flash, Volume 2, number 138. Number 1, Godspeed. August Hart was the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash, so while going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. He became the Flash's quote-unquote partner, but in secret. August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got his revenge on who he suspected to be his brother's killer. Godspeed is basically what the Flash would be if Barry Allen had one bad day. The Flash refrains from using his lethal force, but Godspeed doesn't at all. Godspeed's argument is that Central City would have been a much safer place had the Flash shown some bloodlust. He proves this point when he kills Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, who didn't have any speedster powers at the time. Thawne did get his revenge eventually though, because after Barry brings back Thawne via time travel, that Thawne kills August. Man, keeping up with that whole time travel and speedster thing is so tough. Either way, Godspeed is one of the most deadly and dangerous enemies the Flash has ever had to race against. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2016's The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Number 1.
Number 10, Harley Quinn animated series. Sure, this version of the Joker is quite hilarious, as this is a mature comedic animated show. But that doesn't mean that he isn't dark. He is still, after all, the Joker. This version of the Joker actually succeeds in taking over Gotham City at the end of season 1, trapping the Justice League, defeating Batman, torturing Harley's crew, and defeating even the other members of the Legion of Doom. The guy even kills Scarecrow for unmasking Batman in front of him by making his head explode with acid. It's true, it happened. He is violent, successful, and still quite dark. He also makes his entrance in season 1, episode 1 by wearing the captain of a yacht's face, ripping it off like a mask to reveal his own. Ugh. Number 9, Emperor Joker. When you give Joker 99.99% of Mr. Mxyzptlk's reality warping powers, you can expect things to get weirdly dark. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Emperor Joker was born in the comics and that he did all kinds of twisted, dark things. One of the worst things though for me was he set almost everyone in a horrible time loop where they were usually trapped in some way or being tortured, or being trapped and tortured. The worst of combos. Or I guess in Joker's case, the best of combos? Number 8, Joker film. The Joker film may exist in its own bubble, but that bubble was a pretty dark and bleak one. Arthur Fleck is played by Joaquin Phoenix in the film, and the film is based off of the Killing Joke origins for the villain. The idea that one bad day is all it takes to turn someone insane or change someone's life dramatically. In the case of the 2019 Joker film, that one bad day is actually kind of more of a snowball effect. Arthur Fleck is a failed comedian who is mentally ill, and when cut off from his medication, quickly becomes overwhelmed by all the negative aspects of his life and shocking revelations. In the end, he ends up killing his favorite show host on national television, similar to a moment in the Dark Knight Returns animated story, and confirming Arthur Fleck's full transformation into the Joker, becoming a killer, a villain, and inspiring riots in Gotham. Number 7, Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger had one of the most ruled by chaos versions of the Joker. This was a grittier, darker interpretation of the character that was so powerful it actually influenced Joker's appearance and senseless love of violence in the comics, radiating outwards. Ledger and Christopher Nolan's interpretation of the character was actually a perfect marriage of the silly chaos that is the Joker, but cut with a grotesque sense of recklessness that made this interpretation so dangerous. It remains a great homage to the classic Joker while also being a deadly modern spin on the character. Number 6, Vampire Joker. The Joker of Earth 43 ends up appearing to die, and in so turns Batman evil, causing him to give into his bloodlust and cementing his transformation into a full-fledged monster and vampire. Batman himself had already been changed into a vampire when he and the Joker came to final blows. Batman though remained immune to most vampire weaknesses as he still maintained a pure heart, having never fed off of a human. Joker killing Batman's companion, Werecat Selina Kyle, however, threw Batman into a rage, causing him to give into his vampire instincts. He killed Joker and fed off of him, giving into the darkness within himself, and this meant that in death, Joker had actually won. And although Batman attempted to dispose of Joker's body in such a way that, he'd never return as a vampire, somehow Joker managed to survive and did return as a vampire himself during Convergence. Number 5, Killing Joke. This version and Joker story will always have a place in comic book history as being one of the most controversial. But besides that, it also gives us a very dark alternate version of the Joker, and a much sadder version. It paints a picture of Joker as a man who leaves his job at a chemical plant to pursue a career as a stand-up comedian. Unfortunately, no one really finds him very funny, save for his pregnant wife, who insists that he always manages to make her smile. Aww. Low on cash, he agrees to help some criminals with a robbery, guiding them through the chemical plant that he used to work for. After finding out his wife and baby, however, have perished, he is forced to go through with the plan anyway and ends up falling into a vat of chemicals. While of course not an official origin story for the Joker, it is a very dark origin that helps to explain the Joker's madness, and even somehow makes you feel sympathy for the character that in the same book paralyzes Barbara Gordon and tortures her father, Commissioner Gordon. Number 4. Injustice Joker. While Injustice Joker may not have survived very long, he was one of the most brutal and dark because, like some of Joker's other alternates, he was willing to trade his life just to see his plan come to fruition. And come to fruition, it did. Joker was successful in driving Superman to his breaking point, causing him to kill the Joker and turn into a villain himself. One of the best ways, of course, to turn Superman into a villain is to take out all of the people who keep him the most human, such as his pal Jimmy Olsen and of course Lois Lane. In doing this, although the Joker died, he won. Because of this incident and of course Metropolis being blown up, Superman feels he has no choice but to take hold of the world in order to protect Earth, along the way losing even more of his humanity and becoming himself sort of a paranoid dictator. Number 3. Martha Wayne. In Flashpoint, we get to visit an alternate timeline where Bruce was the one who died, not his parents. They are forced to live with the loss of their son, which inspired Thomas Wayne to take up the mantle as Batman, but drives his wife Martha insane. She ends up becoming the Joker after Thomas Wayne's Batman goes to take care of the criminal responsible for murdering his son. He tells Martha that he too misses Bruce, and he also misses her smile. When he returns after pummeling the criminal Joe Chill to death with his bare hands, he finds out that Martha has given herself a Glasgow smile. Yee. Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Batman Who Laughs is of course more considered an alternate version of Bruce Wayne than of the Joker, but in truth, he's kind of an amalgam of both. Breathing in the Joker's venom that exudes from his corpse after Batman kills him is what causes Bruce to become the Batman Who Laughs. In a sense, Joker, although dead, lives on within him, twisting his mind into something closer to the Joker's than to Bruce's. Although this character just goes to show how close these two characters really could be when it comes to their potential for evil. So wait, would that make Batman kind of an alternate version of Joker himself, and vice versa? Does that mean that Joker's an alternate version of Batman? Batman's an alternate version of Joker? Huh. Number 1. Earth -22 Joker. Why is it that all the darkest iterations of Joker have to die? Well, because, you know, something is about to go horribly wrong when you allow the Joker to die. One of the darkest versions of the Joker to date appeared in the origin story for the Batman Who Laughs. We find out the Batman Who Laughs became who he was because of this Joker, the Joker of Earth -22. Knowing he was going to die soon, finally being poisoned to death by the toxin which had made him who he was, he planned to go out with a bang. This meant taking down all of Batman's former foes, proving that he himself was the ultimate foe, and torturing Batman by orphaning a bunch of children in front of him before exposing the kids to the Joker venom, driving them insane. In doing so, this Joker brought about the most evil creation. Batman snapped and killed the Joker, releasing the very venom that would transform him into the terrifying Batman Who Laughs. And yet Joker got the last laugh there, I think. Number 10. Arrowverse. Similar to the comics, CW's Arrowverse has also had their own version of the Suicide Squad team. This version was as equally dark as the comic book version, though not quite as twisted. Tara Strong did the voice for the Harley we saw locked up in the show, but was not the actress that we briefly saw in those shots. This team used to be led by Amanda Waller and featured Deadshot, Shrapnel, and Bronze Tiger. No Harley. However, leadership was later taken over by Oliver Queen's partner John Diggle and his wife Lila Michaels, aka Harbinger, with the roster also being changed to feature Jericho, Cupid, and China White. Number 9. Blackest Day. We don't really get to see this version of the Suicide Squad, alas. We just get to hear instead about their tragic fate. In the DC House of Horror comic special, we get a collection of horror stories set in the DC world, and what we can safely assume are alternate spooky universes. Ooh. One story even features an alternate version of famed Squad member Harley Quinn, where she is a ghost who haunts a man and drives him insane, making him kill tons of people, and all the while teasing him. Typical Harley. In the story Blackest Day, a zombie apocalypse has overrun the world, and Harley Quinn and all of the other members of Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad are confirmed dead by John Constantine, who sends a communique to the Justice League Watchtower before himself being overrun by zombies. It turns out that the Justice League themselves have already been overrun, with Flash infecting them with the virus out on the Watchtower. Number 8. Deceased Hope at World's End. While this series is a little more optimistic than most compared to some of the other DC stuff, it features two surviving members of the Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad, Aerie and Wink. In this alternate universe, the two characters are still alive but are faced with the semi-zombie apocalypse, whose infection has reached everywhere via the life equation. This is one of those times when flight powers and functional wings like Aerie's really do come in more handy, even though I usually rag on that ability sometimes. Especially when you have all those unliving just trudging around down there on the ground. Unfortunately, while Aerie and Wink continue to stay safe while searching for Nightshade and Hive in issue number 4 of Hope at World's End, the pair run into an infected Black Adam, who can also fly, of course, and all of the infected population of Kahndaq. Number 7. Suicide Squad Black. This version of the team is still from Prime Earth, but features a new roster of villains / anti-heroes, combined with some familiar faces. The team was once again led by Amanda Waller and featured characters that she forced into action, like the main squad. The members throughout consisted of El Diablo, Azucar, Gentleman Ghost, Juniper, Tiamat, Wither, Clarion the Witch Boy, and Enchantress. A lot of mystical and magical characters on this team. This alternate version of the team referred to themselves as Suicide Squad Black, and appeared in their own limited series titled Suicide Squad Black Files. Number 6. David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Ayer's version of the Suicide Squad in the DCEU featured many familiar and recurring faces when it comes to the squad's members. Led by Amanda Waller, the team featured Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Enchantress, El Diablo, Captain Boomerang, and Katana. Not only was the film dark when it came to exploring the origins of many of these characters, their struggles, and all they had suffered through to become the villains they were today, but it was also dark because of the fact that Enchantress almost succeeded in kind of taking over the world. In the end, the Suicide Squad did manage to save the day, but had to eliminate Enchantress and the innocent June Moon, whom she possesses. Number 5. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Gunn's The Suicide Squad will actually be a soft reboot of the former team. His team and his feel of the Suicide Squad will likely be a lot different than Ayer's, although it still seems to have plenty of that Suicide Squad chaos that most fans enjoy. This time around, the team has a lot more members, reminding us once again of why exactly the team is referred to as the Suicide Squad, despite having the official government name of Task Force X, because at any point, anyone can die. This team is sent on only the toughest missions, referred to as suicide missions, because for many they would be considered impossible. You can expect there will be more violence, explosions, and deaths in comparison to the first film. Considering that many of the members of the squad won't make it out alive, this film is likely to be a much darker take on the Suicide Squad when it comes to cinematics. Currently, the team roster includes Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, The Thinker, Captain Boomerang, Blackguard, Polka Dot Man, Savant, King Shark, Weasel, Javelin, Ratcatcher 2, Soul Soria, TDK, and Mongol. Woo! With likely even more surprise members awaiting to be revealed throughout the duration of the film. Number 4. Telltale Games. In the Telltale Batman game, the Suicide Squad turn up once more, but this version of Amanda Waller's team is different when it comes to their roster. In the Telltale episode The Enemy Within, we learn that both Bane and Harley are on the team, and in a shocking twist, it's revealed that Catwoman is also part of the Suicide Squad. What? Which Waller is also using to apply pressure to Batman, which is pretty dark if you yourself are playing as the Dark Knight. And of course here, at this part, you are. Catwoman expresses, of course, that she did not join the team willingly and tries to warn Batman, but is shocked by Waller's collar before she can finish her sentence. Oh, and Amanda Waller also seems to want Batman to submit and also join her team. Pretty nuts. Number 3. Arkhamverse. Recently, we have gotten another look at the Arkhamverse with the new Suicide Squad game. The Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The new game was confirmed as being part of the established Arkhamverse and features Suicide Squad members Harley Quinn, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot, taking on one of their darkest missions yet. Amanda Waller has instructed Task Force X this time around to take down the Justice League, which means yeah, somehow this group of misfits is going to have to try and take down heroes like Superman and Wonder Woman. Yikes. Number 2. Assault on Arkham. This animated Batman direct-to-video film, Assault on Arkham, was kind of what I was hoping we'd get when we got the initial Suicide Squad film in terms of plot. This alternate animated version of the team is led by the merciless Amanda Waller, who captures the criminals and forces them to complete missions in order to have years removed from their sentence. They have no say, however, in whether or not they want to be involved, and a skeptical KG Beast even challenges Waller's promise that should they misbehave or deviate from their missions, their heads will be blown off via bomb she had implanted in their necks. No collars this time around. KG Beast learns the hard way that Waller is telling the truth, and after the rest of the team watches KG Beast's head get blown off, they agree to cooperate. Seems like a smart move. Their mission is to break into Arkham and recover a piece of intel. The mission, of course, does get messy as the squad try to break away from Waller's control, and King Shark also ends up getting his head blown off. Number 1. Future's End. The Future's End alternate world is full of alternate versions of some of your favorite characters, and it also happens to include an alternate version of the Suicide Squad as well. They appear in the new Suicide Squad Future's End one-shot, once again reunited and led by Amanda Waller. However, at the beginning of the comic, it's revealed that this version of the Suicide Squad was split split up and imprisoned in Belle Reve, before Amanda Waller broke in to reassemble her team. It's also revealed in this one-shot that while imprisoned, her team has been through hell. Harley Quinn has been forcibly given the steroid Venom while imprisoned, turning her into a hulking, muscle-bound version of herself who spends most of her day raging out. They attempted to give Deadshot a gun for an arm, amputating one of his arms and attempting to replace it, which didn't work, and Black Manta had his brain fried after they downloaded Deathstroke's fighting skills into his brain.
Number 10. Wonder Woman Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, although this is technically in the main continuity, the Wonder Woman that appears in Dark Knight's Death Metal absolutely deserves a spot on this list today because she is one serious badass. Introduced to us in the first issue of Dark Knight's Death Metal, Wonder Woman alongside Swamp Thing is a guard of the demonic-looking prison that holds any villain that does not want to team up with the Batman Who Laughs. So it would kinda seem like she's working for him, but it's revealed later that is not the case when she just impales and rips the Batman Who Laughs in two with her new awesome-looking weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Wonder Woman's whole goal in this storyline is to correct the mistakes that have been made and to set everything back on track by somehow resetting the timeline. Basically, she's the Wonder Woman we all know and love, stuck in one of the darkest and scariest DC storylines to date, and that is why she is starting off our list today. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2020's Dark Knight's Death Metal, Volume 1, Number 1. Number 9, Bizarra. You can probably guess it from the name, but Bizarra is the Bizarro version of Wonder Woman. Now, if you're not familiar with Bizarro, he is basically an incomplete clone of Superman, which means that Bizarra is an incomplete clone of Wonder Woman. She was created using the powers of the Fifth Dimension and is meant to be the evil counterpart to our Wonder Woman, but I think we all know that Bizarro versions of any hero never really get the job done. Even though Bizarra possesses both the Bracelets of Submission and the Lasso of Truth like her counterpart, she's only strong enough to challenge Wonder Woman in a one-on-one duel, and when it comes to brains, oh man, trust me, she does not even come close to Wonder Woman. As a member of the Injustice League of Un-America, Bizarro was one of the many that was captured by Metallo in his attempt to rule over Bizarro World, but was thankfully freed by Bizarro himself. Now, I think my favorite thing about Bizarra and the other Bizarro copies is their way of speaking. She spoke in a very twisted tongue and always meant the opposite of what she said. For example, when she says, "I love you," she actually means, "I hate you." Check her out for yourself in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 8, Brunhilde. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where many of our favorite heroes have been turned into villainous versions of themselves, comes Valkyrie Brunhilde, the Wonder Woman of this Earth that is based on Norse mythology, as opposed to, the original Greek. On Earth 10, all these superheroes we're familiar with are part of the German army and are believers of fascism, so from that you can probably assume that most of them are pure evil. Brunhilde is a member of the New Reichman alongside other dark iterations of the Justice League members, whose only real goal is to rid the world of the freedom fighters and spread their ideals across the land. The New Reichman are, however, taken down pretty much from the inside after Overman began to feel guilty about his past deeds. Honestly, put simply, Brunhilde is an evil version of Wonder Woman that can and will go to any lengths necessary to get the job done. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook, Number 1. Number 7, Deceased Wonder Woman. Taking place in the Deceased DC universe, Deceased is a mini-series that follows the aftermath of Cyborg's body being used to carry a version of the anti-life equation that ended up turning the general population into zombies. In this mini-series, we see Wonder Woman become a member of the Unliving, which is basically DC's equivalent of zombies, whose whole purpose is to spread anti-life by either infecting or killing living things. They show very little signs of intelligence, and they still retain the ability to utilize their skill sets, powers, and technologies respectively to a surprisingly effective manner. The Infected have also shown numerous times of coming up with very elaborate strategies and tactical decisions to bypass pockets of resistance and cause as much death and destruction as possible. Our Infected Wonder Woman actually showed that she was able to form coherent and full sentences when she was interrogated by Cyborg, implying that she still has some humanity left in her. However, after being set free, she immediately decapitated Cyborg to preserve any secret she told him. Honestly, all I have to say is Wonder Woman's strength and skills combined with the mind and body of a zombie makes for a scary hero. So check her out for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, Number 1. Number 6, Whom God Destroys Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman only showed up in a 4-issue series called Superman and Wonder Woman Who Gods Destroy. This storyline takes place in an alternate world where Europe is still under the control of the Germans, and Lois Lane actually steps up to the plate as the new Wonder Woman in order to protect those around her from the tyrannical ruling of the original Wonder Woman and Superman. Not a whole lot is known about this evil Wonder Woman other than the fact that she betrayed her home in order to obtain more power. And just like the other evil versions of her, her lack of humanity is incredibly evident as she looks down on Lois Lane's Wonder Woman for just being immortal. The story ends with Lois defeating the evil Wonder Woman, and it is revealed that the gods Zeus and Hera were actually playing a game of chess using the world as their chess pieces. and that's why everything is so messed up. Oddly enough though, the story doesn't quite end there, because once everyone is defeated, everything seems to be pretty much back to normal. Superman, Lois, and Wonder Woman all decide to live together on Superman's fortress on the moon. Check out this miniseries for yourself, starting with 1997 Superman and Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy, number 1. Number 5, Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Hopefully we all know who Frank Miller is, you know, the writer of The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again. Well, Miller also took a crack at the character that is Wonder Woman in his Batman series The Dark Knight Strikes Back. In this series, heroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel have been forced to work for the government, since their loved ones are being held hostage and are under threat. Superman is even ordered by the president, who turns out to be a computer-generated front for Lex Luthor and Brainiac, to stop Batman. It eventually gets to the point in the story where Superman, Wonder Woman, and their daughter Lara joins forces with Batman once again because they deem his plan to be the only way to get out of this whole mess. Now I'll be honest, this Wonder Woman isn't on this list today because of how dark the story is. It's mostly because this is considered to be one of the worst incarnations of Wonder Woman to date. Now she's definitely the warrior you expect from Wonder Woman, but her cold and quite frankly sexist portrayal in the comics was nothing short of distasteful. It also doesn't help that her humanity was put in question throughout the entirety of the graphic novel. If you feel like you can stomach it, check out this Wonder Woman and this whole series starting with 2002's The Dark Knight Strikes Again, number 1. Number 4, Wonder Woman God of War. Following 2011's Flashpoint event, DC rebooted the entirety of its continuity into the New 52. In the new Wonder Woman, the story of Hippolyta creating Diana from clay is revealed to actually be a lie, and Diana is actually a child of Zeus, and the whole clay bit was a cover story intended to keep Zeus's jealous wife Hera from killing her. Sometime later during her training, Diana became the secret protege of Ares, the god of war, only to have him drop her when she refused to kill for him. Years later, after Diana learned her true origin, she found herself embroiled in the power struggles of her Olympian kin. In the course of one adventure, she had to kill Ares, which made her the new god of war, and although she fought against the role for a while, as the battle against the monstrous firstborn of Zeus heated up, she stepped right into the job. Honestly, who knows what Wonder Woman creator William Marston would have made of this, given that he wrote her as this force of peace and this nemesis of the god of war. He might be happier with the events in DC Rebirth, which implies that the whole, Diana's New 52 adventures didn't actually happen. Number 3, Superwoman. I feel like we all knew this alternate Wonder Woman was going to end up on this list today. Hailing from Earth 3, the Earth that is said to be the birthplace of evil, Superwoman is a renegade Amazon who has also taken on the identity of Lois Lane, depending on the version that we're talking about here. Depending on her origin, she is either from Paradise Island or its antimatter equivalent known as Damnation Island. While there are many versions of her out there, one thing that they all have in common is her sadistic personality and the love triangle she has with her colleagues. Equipped with a lasso of submission, a barbed and much scarier looking version of the lasso of truth that forces the captor to not only comply with the user, but also fall in love with them, which she has used a few times to her advantage, if you know what I mean. As a member of the crime syndicate, she helped imprison most of the members of the various Justice Leagues in the Firestorm Matrix and began a reign of terror over the world, eliminating any resistance in their way. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or skip ahead to 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 2, Injustice Wonder Woman. Easily one of the most dark and evil versions of Wonder Woman out there. Not only did she see Superman's descent into evil before it ever happened, but she also actively encouraged it, practically manipulating the Man of Steel when he was at his worst for her own personal gain. Not only that, but by the events of the original Injustice video game, she had been ruling Paradise Island with an iron fist and showed absolutely no remorse. She served as Superman's right hand and took the place of Lois Lane as his new love interest. However, he clearly showed no love towards her because he was still mourning the loss of his dead wife, who he killed himself. When she is confronted by her mainstream counterpart, the mainstream Wonder Woman reprimands her for blindly following a man who does not feel as much devotion to her as she does to him. And once Wonder Woman is defeated, she is taken by her fellow Amazons to be imprisoned for her role in the regime and is later seen on Kahndaq during the events of Injustice 2 as she has been exiled. Take a look at her story for yourself, starting with 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us number 1, or honestly just feel free to replay the games. And finally, number 1, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When the Flash accidentally created Flashpoint as a result of attempting to save his mother, the ripple effects changed the timeline to the worst it's ever been. Batman is Thomas Wayne, Superman is in a government facility, and Wonder Woman is the monarch of the Amazons and currently at war with Atlantis, all because she killed Aquaman's wife, who knew Wonder Woman was having an affair with her husband. With all of the normal powers and accessories that make Wonder Woman a formidable foe, this iteration of Wonder Woman seems to lack the empathy that prevents Diana from absolutely losing it and killing everyone. As the war went on, Aquaman and Wonder Woman forged an alliance to take down a mutual enemy, Batman. As both monarchs send their troops to Batman's lair, the world is erased, killing every single inhabitant. Absolutely cruel and bloodthirsty, this Wonder Woman has something that she shares with her Injustice counterpart: her lack of love and above all, her sickening lack of humanity. Now I love the Flashpoint timeline with all of my heart, so why not check it and her out for yourself, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, Number 1.
Number 10. Grim Knight. The origin story of the Grim Knight is similar to the Batman of Prime Earth, but is warped. Instead of the Dark Knight, we know him as the Grim Knight, because this Batman is not afraid to use guns. So yes, you could say he's similar to the OG Batman from the 40s, but he is also far more brutal and ruthless. This version of Batman ended up killing Joe Chill when he was just a child. After Chill shot his parents, he stumbled away in the darkness, but Chill tripped and dropped his gun and Martha Wayne's necklace. While he searched for the necklace in the dark, a young Bruce grabbed the gun and aimed it at Chill, killing him in cold blood with tears in his eyes. This set Bruce down the path of believing that killing was the best way to deal with criminals that opposed justice. This version of Bruce was still inspired by a bat crashing through his window to become Batman, but he also shot that bat when it did. Number 9. Death of Superman. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday, Lois becomes depressed and jaded, believing that the world failed Clark. She ends up merging with the Eradicator, who claims it failed in its mission to resurrect the fallen Superman, and instead bonds with Lois so that she can succeed where she believes other heroes have failed, fighting on in Clark's name. However, Lois goes too far compared to Superman, killing those who oppose her, villains and heroes alike. Superman returns, but only lives long enough to express his disappointment and disgust in what Lois Lane has become before he is killed by Cyborg Superman. Super depressing story. Number 8. The Merciless. Like the Earth 12 belonging to the non-dark multiverse, on Earth -12, Batman and Wonder Woman are also in a romantic relationship together. They fight side by side in a war that threatens to engulf the entire population of Earth against the god of war, Ares. After countless have died and they're basically the only two left standing, they finally succeed, but Batman feels in order to protect the world, he should be the one to wield Ares' power. Knowing that Wonder Woman herself would not take Ares' helmet, and with it his power, and that she would actually not allow Bruce to take it for fear of it corrupting him, Batman sees no other choice but to kill Diana. He takes Ares' helmet for himself and fights on, claiming to fight in honor and in memory of the fallen warrior and his love, Wonder Woman. Number 7. Blackest Night. This is a wild story wherein Sinestro never shared the powers of the White Lantern. Here, Necron, who speaks through Darkseid, attempts to obliterate the entire universe. Sinestro is both Black and White Lantern, known as the Limbo Lantern, and sees only one way to save the universe, by creating a new universe in Dove's image, by plugging her into the source. This almost works, except at the last minute their ally, Mr. Miracle's conviction wavers, and he ends up killing Dove to avoid creating and living in a world without his wife Barda. Instead, Sinestro is forced to use the only teammate he has left, Lobo, to create a new universe. Yeah. Slim pickings, I guess. The world instead is made in Lobo's image, who taps into the source, eliminating all Black Lanterns and restarting a dark and more grotesque looking world which Sinestro remains trapped in, unable to leave due to Tempest preventing him from doing so. That sucks. Number 6. The Devastator. The Devastator is another twisted version of Bruce Wayne who was pushed too far. For mysterious reasons that remain unknown, the Superman of the Devastator's dark universe randomly underwent a change that caused him to go on a full-out rampage, killing everyone. Batman was one of the last few left to try and stop him, attempting to do so with a kryptonite spear. After Superman blasts off Batman's arm, however, he is driven to desperate measures. Batman is forced to activate his own version of the Doomsday virus, which takes over his body and transforms him into a Doomsday-like creature, becoming the Devastator. Although he fails in saving his world, he succeeds in killing the Superman of his universe, before heading out to try and save other alternate Earths by infecting them with the virus in order to protect them from their world Superman. Although, you know, they never really asked for that, so it's pretty horrifying. Number 5. Infinite Crisis. In the dark multiverse, Ted Kord is not killed by Maxwell Lord. Instead, Ted pretends to agree to join Lord in cleaning house when it comes to his plans for Checkmate, but he betrays Lord and kills him. Brother Eye threatens to push on with the OMAC project, but Kord offers that he could help to guide Brother Eye and take Maxwell Lord's place, help Brother Eye save and protect the planet as Lord had promised Brother would. Ted ends up attempting to recruit Booster Gold to help him with Brother Eye, but Booster isn't so sure about his friend's plan. In the end, he teams up with Superboy Prime, who has been plotting with Alexander Luthor of Earth 3 to create a perfect world in the main continuity, but Luthor betrays him. Superboy and Blue Beetle, who's now directly connected to the Brother Eye, end up teaming up. They end up attempting to take out 50% of Earth's superhero population as recommended by Brother Eye, but in the end they're forced to eliminate or assimilate all of the superhero populace, who obviously are like, no, you can't just kill us, with Ted Kord sacrificing his humanity in order to completely demolish all of that superhero threat. Number 4. The Murder Machine. After the death of Alfred, Batman in his grief seeks to create an AI in Alfred's image and employs the help of Cyborg. Bruce calls the project the Alfred Protocol. Alfred Protocol is also programmed to act as Bruce's infallible bodyguard, and it's this programming which causes everything to go sideways. The Alfred Protocol spreads, taking out every villain, every criminal he deems a threat to Bruce Wayne's life. However, it doesn't end there. The Alfred Protocol also realizes in order to protect Bruce, it also needs to change him, protect him from himself and his emotions by eradicating them, starting with his fear. This change infects and transforms Batman into a cyborg version of himself known as the Murder Machine, who then goes about killing everyone, determining that everyone and his attachment to them is a weakness. Number 3. The Batman Who Laughs. This dark multiverse story was so terrifying it got its own series. The Batman Who Laughs actually got a miniseries to explain just how his story went down. By now we all should mostly know it, but if you haven't read it, it's chilling and thrilling and it's definitely worth a read. In the story, it's explained how Batman became corrupted by Joker venom when he ended up losing control and killing the Joker, triggered by being forced to watch the Joker kill children's parents in front of them before exposing them to Joker venom and driving them insane. When Batman killed Joker, this exposed him to Joker venom, which was released with the Joker's dying breath from his heart. Batman was then driven insane by the venom, becoming a warped Joker-Batman hybrid, and set out killing everyone, even the members of the Bat family, only allowing Damian Wayne to be converted with the venom and join him. He also later confessed that Alfred was one of the last people to try and stop him by blowing him up, but he managed to thwart and capture Alfred and break him, turning him into his own loyal servant once more. Number 2. The Judas Contract. So as bad as the Judas Contract storyline in the main continuity was for the Teen Titans, apparently its consequences could have been a lot more horrific and a lot worse. In this story, Tara finds herself inspired to become her own murderous villain all her own after one of Dick Grayson's inspirational chats. Great job, Dick. Grayson thinks that he's inspired Tara to become her own person separate from Geoforce's shadow though, not Deathstroke's shadow, as he does not know yet that Tara is actually a spy. She ends up unlocking her potential as a result, becoming more powerful than ever, taking up the name Gaia. She not only tears Slade Wilson apart, literally, but she kills the entire team of Teen Titans, even poor Beast Boy, no! And she also kills the entire Justice League. Number 1. Nightfall. If you haven't read the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, you obviously need to, as they are all pretty crazy, and honestly, the scariest tale can be found in this first one issue. This is a spooky retelling of the Batman story Nightfall. When Bruce has his back broken, he passes the mantle of Batman onto Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael. But when he returns, Azrael refuses to give up the mantle. Instead of Bruce Wayne and the Bat family winning it back as they did in the main continuity, this time around Bruce fails. He instead is held captive and tortured for 30 years by Azrael, who rules Gotham with a bloody and merciless iron fist as Saint Batman. Bruce eventually escapes with the help of Bane's son, Torn, and his mother, Lady Shiva. But his time in imprisonment, where he was slowly dissected, has changed Bruce, and no longer is he the man and hero we once knew.